Fund accounting, fund accounting.
Yeah.
But,
He doesn't
but you know what, though? I will say this. I don't think that happened,
I don't think so.
but I also don't have really any way to know. I mean, we know there was at least someone off the surface. Somebody understands the job.
Yeah.
But, I mean, here's my problem. We really don't know.
So we don't, but that would be my last.
I agree, it would be my last.
Yeah.
But it's really how all of a sudden, oh, yeah, no, that fund don't have $1 million, it got nothing. We have three different people though. We have three different finance directors. And no, but three different finance directors, an annual audit by a CPA firm. Come on, man. I'll tell you who stole some money, the damn CPA firm. How are you gonna audit a place and say everything's A-OK, gold star? And then, oops, there was none of the accounts were reconciled and everything wrong. I'm sorry, that's bullshit.
Meeting's called to order. City clerk, read the roll, please.
Councilwoman Noah. Here. Councilwoman Covington.
Here.
Councilman Cassoff.
Here.
Mayor Shropshire.
Here.
Councilman Franklin.
Here.
Councilman Palmer.
Here.
Councilman Williams.
Meeting's ready for discussion. Mayor, if I start there? Sure. I want to explain kind of where we're at, what's going on, so. First sheet I'm giving you is an analysis of revenues to dates for the general fund only. Second sheet is kind of a rundown of things that I know we've looked at, the current present, everything else, and I will explain in a second. I'll make it all on the same page. Great. All right, so the first sheet I gave you is the highlighted yellow. Goes over revenues by day. You look at it, the first column is gonna be what we budgeted for revenues. Second column is year-to-date actual, so that's the action collected to dates. The column all the way at the end is adding 2 months to run out to May 7th. Basically, so if your actual year-to-date times 0.16 to hit the final number, you look at the overall fees and service charges, we're a little bit overperforming what we budgeted. Fine, public safety, same thing. You got inspection fees, it's pretty close to about 30,000 short. The ones you want to look at, starting on page 2. You look at our property taxes, we're under by about 400,000. You look at sales tax, we're under by about 600,000. That's $1 million in revenue that we forecasted we were gonna have, but we are not gonna have by end of year. That's where you get your $1 million debits. The problem that has occurred over the last several years, this is not a new problem, but the finance directors we've had since 2020 have over forecasted revenue, both sales tax and property tax. And we're paying attention to what we're collecting to dates. They were just forecasting that, oh, well, it's gonna increase by 1%, or it's gonna increase by 0.7%, 1.2. Well, if you continue to do that over the course of 4 or 5 years, you're compounding the problem. So the bottom line is our revenues are not performing where we budgeted for. And on top of that, we're overspending. So you've got a gap in the middle. The bottom line today, we've got a $1.5 million gap we need to close between what I gave you on paper, which showed 322 negative, and the $1 million in revenues for underperforming. So we need to look at this budget to cut 1.5 million out. That's the bottom line in general. There are questions before I move on.
We have been depleting our fund balances as well. If we cut $1.5 million, are we addressing that adequately?
In my opinion, no, but we have to start somewhere. It's gonna be a combination of two. A, we're gonna have to tighten the belt buckle on a month-to-month basis and monitor our spending, get that under control and really monitor it, and do the same for our revenues and monitor that. It's gonna be a fluid thing for the next year. We're gonna have to look at the revenues and maintain what we're spending on a month-to-month basis and be very diligent with department heads and our finance department to keep track. I do not disagree, we need to start building our fund balances. I just don't think we can do both out of the gate. We need to get back to a point where we're breaking even, and then we can look at increasing those fund balances when we're moving forward, if that makes sense. I don't think there's room in this budget, no matter how we cut it, to look at 2.5 cuts, 3 million cuts, that's just not a possibility. Can we find 1.5? I think we'll get into that as we get through this. But any other question about the revenue? Yes, sir.
Just a quick question before we do this. Did any of the no votes on the reconsider get honored to the table? That. Point of order. You said? Point of order. Okay. All right. Yeah.
So based off what you said, the city, do you know how many years we've been, if I'm understanding correctly, we've been basically creating a budget based off of what we forecast our revenue, so we never hit those numbers year after year.
I'd say 2020. I'd say since COVID. And the Band-Aid has been ARPA funds and everything else. But if I'm blatantly honest, and I mean, that falls on several different people. But since 2020, it has been.
And I guess my last question before we dig in, how did we finally discover this oversight?
Over the past 3 to 6 months, digging into the financials, looking at it closely, we discovered less than.
3 to 6 months. Okay, I'm just asking because, you know, I guess when you realize it, because I just think of everything this council has appropriated for funding dispersions. This is my first year on council, you know, we just paid, we voted to, you know, redo planning and zoning. I think that was close to $200,000. We bought truck spreader and whatever else. I can't think of everything they've done, but it just seemed like had we known sooner that, hey, we're in trouble financially, maybe we would appropriate some of that funding because we would have needed it, because it wasn't there. And now we're in desperate need.
That's a little deceiving, how you're portraying, but I'm honest. I firmly believe that council, both this one and previous ones, realized a lot of those budget amendments were dipped into our reserves. I don't doubt or disagree that there was thoughts the reserves looked differently based on audits and that kind of stuff. But I don't think it was unknown to council that we were dipping into reserve in the budget. So it was very clear in the resolutions and the legislation that were being presented. Even based on audit reports, it was evident that we were patching things on the budget bottom line with transfers from other accounts and that type of stuff. When you actually dig in and look at the actual revenues to these expenditures, it's always been clear that it's been a very tight market. That's one of them.
I don't think it's been clear as I personally didn't know that we were looking to high reserve. I mean, do you still have to looking at our reserve?
It depends on what fund you're looking at. That was in the budget book. So we get into that a little bit, but all the reserves are on page 3, I believe, or 2 of your budget book. And it goes fund by fund and tells you exactly what each reserve is at. But we can do that. I mean, that's not here or there.
Councilman Casual.
I think that we knew that supplementary appropriations that are made after you have a balanced budget are, by their very nature, dipping into the reserves. And to a certain extent, that's permissible. Things happen. A fire truck is totaled, you have to have another fire truck. So and that's, or, somebody crashes into a building, you got to patch the hole in the side of the building, whether it's in your budget or not. And I get that. But we also had another situation, which I believe misled council. And that is, and you might want to get into this briefly for the sake of people who aren't familiar with it. We, for, I don't know how long, but for several years at least, were not properly doing a year-end reconciliation of interfund transfers. And so we made some appropriations. For example, I was under the impression that the EDST fund had $6 or $7 million in it. I don't remember the exact number, but it was a huge pool of money. And I know that we as a council, some of us had conversations saying, why have we been letting that money build up for so long? We really need to do some stuff for the community that is compliant with the requirements of state law for EDST. And so we made some appropriations based on what was inaccurate. Can you get into some details on that and about what it was and when it was resolved and why it happened?
What you're speaking of is fiscal years 23, 24, 25. And the audits kind of got lumped together, and that was during the tail end of Eric Osberg, Evan Trump, John Hughes, and then once we hired in, Jenkins. And the current audit firm did the first 2 years, and then this last one, now I'm gonna restate the fund balances. Fund balances are correct now. At the last meeting, you guys adjusted all of those. But to answer your other question, look on page 2 at the very bottom, that goes over every fund balance, where it's gonna sit at, where it sits at currently at the end of fiscal 26, based on forecasting in the top section, where it sits at currently at the end of the budget that we're looking at right now, 27, bottom section. If you look at the top, it goes from general, parks, EST, all the way through every single fund that's separated in separate accounts. And all the fund balance listed at the bottom. When you lump them all together, which you should not do, but when you lump them all together, there's about $11.1 million in fund balance across the board. Your general fund at the end of next year is gonna be sitting around 574. Your parks gonna be about 1.5, EDST is about 3.4, and so on and so forth. But those are your fund balances, and now what you're speaking of, the very bottom of that page, after next year's proposed budget. The top is after this current year's budget as of July 1 issue, if that makes sense. Did I get into enough detail there?
It does. One follow-up to that. When I asked Nodrick about this in his last council meeting, I asked him, why is it that we have an annual audit by an outside CPA firm, and every year we get the gold star, and yet this has been going on for several years? And his response to that was, well, they only audit what we put in.
And he's not wrong. So they audit the information that they are given. The unfortunate part is the finance directors, in my opinion, did not give them sufficient information for fall.
It seems like that would have been something somebody would have noticed, millions of dollars in phantom money.
No, disagree. Have those finance directors.
Indeed. Thank you, sir.
I don't have to dig too deep into the weeds. I think the purposes was to illustrate that we miscalculating for quite some time, but could we special assessment increase for overage of 581% be due to the new policy of attaching specials to tax bills, or what is that?
It's a combination. So unfortunately, there's some ball of yarn that's sort out there. When Rachel was here, she lumped a bunch of the fees and surcharges that we got together, because there's some things that are being coded incorrect still in that system. And so I feel it's a false number, it's not the accurate response as far as those go. I would say some is the specials. It's also because some permits are being lumped in together.
That'd be similar to coding when it comes to the 4,600% increase in miscellaneous income. Okay, so this one just threw it in there, so I'll deal with it later.
And that's the problem. When we're looking back to the auditing, things aren't being coded correctly when it comes to income, revenues, also expenditures, and we're untying that knot right now. Sure, so to be correct in that new fiscal year.
So it's probably the right category, sounds like subcategories. Thank you.
So you have big, large funds, categories, and you get down to the subgroups. I think the last little bit is budget stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah. So now I think it's on. All right, so if there's no more questions about the yellow sheet, I'd like to move into the next packet of sheets that I gave you, which is this one. What I did on this packet because I've been through a couple of these with you guys, is I wanted to highlight kind of what our cuts potentially could look like on a citywide, show that it's not gonna be enough, it's the bottom. So I'll throw out the table cold. Possibly increase citywide is gonna be a total of $85,000. So if you don't give a 3% increase to non-uniform personnel, the city will stay at $85,000. That's it. We move on to our personnel lines. I just pointed out on the salaries, what really cost is in there. If you look citywide, about $14 million in salaries. That makes up between 75 and 80% of our total. $10 million in just salaries. The next one is pension contributions. Got that, you look at $550,000 there. Conferences, if I cut conferences citywide, we would save a total of $75,000. Training and education, we cut it citywide, we save $130,000. Office supplies, if I didn't buy one single pen, pencil, anything, you're gonna save a total of $32,000. Miscellaneous, cut it citywide, you save $30,000. Miscellaneous fees, we can't get rid of, like banks charges, but citywide it's $40,000. Those are all prime examples of what the council looked at in years past to nickel and dime the budget. I agree, we need to look at those. The bottom line is if I cut all that I just gave you, you're only saving $393,877. So it's not enough. We gotta look elsewhere. The real budget difference is going to be staff. We're gonna have to take a good hard look at it. Can't do that necessarily, it's not legal when you get discussed individual personnel. So my question to you point blank, you wanna go to closed session at the beginning so we can talk about the big dollars? Or you wanna nickel and dime at night one and we can kind of go through there and see where we end up being? Because that's where we're gonna be.
I move to go to closed session to discuss personnel issues.
My next question is, you want to dismiss everybody, go upstairs?
We have to take a vote.
Oh, sorry, okay, okay. Roll call, please.
Councilman Castle?
Aye.
Councilwoman O? Aye. Councilman Singleton? Aye. Mayor Shropshire? Aye. Councilman Franklin?
Aye.
Councilman Palmer? Councilman Williams?
Alright,
So would you guys like to go upstairs? We have our closed session, or you would,
Or we could do it in back there.
if there's no back, we can. That's fine.
I mean, is that available? The boardroom?
My question is, you wanna have everybody wait? How long do you wanna talk about this?
All this, might be over to, that was, well, just police, just, you know, yeah. But that's what I'm gonna report the state. Well, no, you'll have to do a part of.
Oh, is that what's gonna be? Okay.
No, that'll be part of your new job.
Oh, sorry, great.
You volunteer position.
Yeah, right on that.
But you can't, but I don't think, please, interrupt.
Oh, I just go to jail just directly.
See, I told you we have it all worked out. Well, that's why we were back there for so long.
Oh, okay.
Right, right. Yeah.
No, I have good stuff in my office.
Oh,
Remember I had to go buy $30 to the shop?
oh, right, right.
Yeah. Hopefully so.
Oh, shoot, I left that. I left that twice.
What page?
447. I'm going
That's what you get. You better open your phone up.
I'm not going there. I'm gonna go see about. My legs are shorter than. Where I would be there for.
Your legs are so short, you could sit underneath.
I'm sitting next to you.
Take a look. Grandma catch.
Ooh, it looks like Cracker Jacks.
It's really good.
You know what? That's not popcorn. That's candy made to make, there's like a way to make candy make beer cake. Yeah, that's good. Not too sweet. Not too sweet.
They must have 30 or 40 flavors.
Butter and salt, man. I'm a traditional guy.
My grandson loves.
Mel and.
What?
From a Mel ball.
Yeah, I should say you said that.
Yeah.
Got
Mel.
those.
I didn't possibly.
I have a motion and a second to reconvene.
So moved.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Hessel.
I,
Councilman Craig.
Aye.
Councilman Farmer. Councilman Williams.
Aye.
Councilwoman Noah. Aye. Councilwoman Littleton.
Aye.
Mayor Shopshire.
Aye. Motion dies, sir. Alright, so after closed session, we're gonna move. In order, we'll go to capital next. We're gonna go over EST, and I'm gonna end up office, and back to the. Move on. If you wanna pull up. General overview, page 2, look at the capital improvement sales tax budget all the way on the right. We're predicting the forecast to be in a deficit by over $1 million in the current year. Main reason for that was the snowplow truck. Almost one purchases. Car and what. Who competed? Station. What we've done is put together a capital for next year. It's somewhat balanced, but we weren't able to get all that. So instead of $1,049,000, this will be less than 657 as of next year. So the question is, do we make additional cuts to capital to get that where it needs to be in the black, or what does that look like? So that's the point plan. What we normally do here is look at the spreadsheets, that's gonna be back. Yeah, I know that. It's gonna be back to page 452. You know, lovely book, I find it physically, so I can read through it with you. We go item by item. Give me 1 second while the computer pulls up. Here's cut off.
Yeah.
It is available online, you can see it on there. What I'm currently.
Okay. I'm gonna go reprint.
I don't know if it works. Try. Lovely work. Right. Oh, good.
I'm trying to do. Is that important? It's on the website.
Yeah, it's attached to your agenda.
Or you can just. Wait, how did I get to it? Maybe it was from the agenda.
Well, I mean, right.
It's 452. That's that. There we go, just got on the screen. Probably can't read it, don't have mine, but it's up there. I'm trying to.
I got it on my phone.
All right, my mic is half on, so we'll go with that. The first section in capital is always parks. I will see if Joseph wants to talk about it, but really he's only got two things. He has the Parks Community Grant, it's grant funded, and then he also has the Plaza 501 project, that we have grant funding as well. So those are the only two things in there. Basically, what won't occur is grant funding. So I don't know that you really went too much. Moving on to the next one, it's the parks, kind of vehicles. He has nothing identified next year in that. So the next one after that is gonna be PD. Chief Troy Doyle with us. We're gonna have to talk about those, but the ones that are outlined in green are things that we've identified that it does need. The ones in yellow were grant funded. I can go line by line if you like, but we've got the building facility upgrades. We have the police cars purchased over lease. We have the police cars outfitting. We have the automated license plate reader. We have grant funding for ballistic vests, for the dash and body cam. We have the tasers. We have the Paladin drone, block safety cameras. We have the portable walkie-talkies, and then we have the portable walkie-talkie batteries. They keep dying with it. I'll circumvent this. No, I'll circumvent. Anything anyone wants to talk about in that police capital section? Questions, concerns so far at this point?
What is the building facility upgrade specifically?
Chief, would you like to answer the question on building facility upgrades?
You're running out of office space at PD. If obviously move or either hire an assistant chief, there's no office space, literally there. So So we probably have to cut some offices, have possibly, try to do something to expand an office. So,
You got them jail cells downstairs, right?
being utilized also.
Any other questions about PD?
On the walkie-talkies batteries, the contract we signed, like 2 years ago, it's like a 5-year thing, or 10-year, same thing. Lock-in, the growing also hold contract, right?
That's correct.
Yes.
Anything else? All right, we'll move down to fire. We've got the monitors AED citywide. That's a grant funded project. We've got the turnout gear. We've got the repair fire equipment. We've got firehouse infrastructure. We've got a grant for the replacement of the self-contained breathing apparatus. We've got the portable walkie-talkies, we've got portable walkie-talkie batteries. Again, the contract's already in place. But as you see, he's got 2 grant-funded projects that won't be funded unless he gets the grants, and then everything else was identified as a need. Any questions for Chief?
I have a general question. We've got grant funded projects in there which will only happen if the grant happens. Is the grant money included in revenue?
Correct. So,
Okay.
the way the budget is laid out, you've got, for example, general, it's 10-0-0. That's a revenue account, that is 0-0. You've got a 1099, which is a transfer account. So if there's money being transferred between inter funds, that's identified in 1099. I'm using 10 as a general. I mean, you've got 20, 28, all the other funds, but just in general for 10. So 10-0-0 is revenue, 99 are transfers. And you've got your expense account kind of in between all those when you do 10, 11, 10, 12, all that stuff. So the first line is your fund, first line is the revenue, and the last line is transfers.
Right, I understand. But so like, for example, the breathing apparatus, it's $160,000 grant funded.
It's 90,000, it's a 90% match. So the expense is only 90% of that. The funding is on the 0-0 line for capital identified in fund.
And if the grant for some reason doesn't happen, that $160,000 goes away and 90% of $160,000 on the revenue side would also go away.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
I will defer to Chief John Hampton.
That's like, my stuff, anything that happened in our house, the breaks that go again.
He gave me a copy. This is bigger, so you didn't have, we were okay.
Any other questions on fire capital? All right. We will scroll down to our infrastructure, streets, sidewalks, and all that fun stuff. The only 2 projects that are identified in capital for streets next year are EDST projects for Paul and the Elkins Woodwinds in Atmore. This is where you're gonna get into a little bit of EDST funding because they're grant match projects, so there's some revenue on the reverse side for that grant match already coming for EDST. But that's the revenue source for that portion. Everything else is being supported in capital on this one. Questions?
Stop the wrong one.
Not on those 3 or the 4.
So there are no additional road projects planned for this fiscal year other than those.
That is correct. All right, if there's nothing there, we'll move down to common fleet. This is the one that is the fleet lease at $369,000. That's what we have remaining on our leased vehicles. That number does drop in half next year to 140 something, 103, I think. Number's up there, I can't read it. $103,096. This is the bottom one. And I don't know how anybody feels about this. We did a fleet lease going on 2 or 3 years ago. We had to do it to get caught up. Fleet lease does not make sense. What we need to do is hold on to these vehicles as long as we physically can and start buying outright again to the tune of 5, 6 vehicles, whatever we can afford moving forward. But until we get out of this lease, we can't afford to do that. So this year's tight on that. And then we're looking at next year dropping down 103, and then it's paid off the year after that, and we're back in a better place. I mean, that's just the blatant truth. So, after that, we drop down to, the bed for the service truck. That's a minimal for Public Works. They have a different bed for that service truck. You look for an engine for the plow truck rather than replacing an entire plow. We're trying to find the cheapest way we can. The chassis and the bed are decent on it. So we're just looking at replacing the engine. That'll get that one back up and running. And then we are also looking at the crack sealer. So we can go around doing our crack seal this fall for all of our roads, so they're maintained better. But those are the minimal expenses we have in that right now. Questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
Don't we have a crack sealer?
We do not currently. Did I answer that correctly? Mr. Gilbert?
Adding to it.
Can I buy one? Only one.
How old is it?
How many times did we use it?
Year.
Do you see an advantage to renting a piece of equipment and crack sealing for 2 or 3 weeks at a time? That way we're not responsible for it. We know it's gonna work. Renting one for $2,000 or $3,000 a week from Sealmaster in Bridgeton. You could get the biggest one they got that'll pump out as much sealer as you need, and if it breaks, you call them and they come and fix it. And that way it doesn't sit and not run, for 52 weeks, 51 weeks out of the year. Just a thought. Because we got a mulch blower right now that's been used, 3 times in about 6 years?
Councilwoman Noah.
So when these items break down, are the common fleet items? Does our maintenance mechanics, are they repairing these items from common fleet, or are we hiring maintenance or repair
90% of the
workers?
time, it's taking place in-house. It depends on exactly what it is. So there's still some wiring and electrical stuff that is outsourced, but most of our accident repair, engine repair, actual maintenance is taking place in-house, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have formal bids for the bed for the service truck or the engine for the plow truck as of now? Or those are estimates?
I believe those are estimates. Pardon? Estimates, yes.
So those would come before council for a resolution when those are done, right? Those would go
Yeah.
out for bid.
So it'll be a formal bid process because it's over $10,000 no matter what, and then it'll come to approval for council for the final purchase on all those.
Right. Clearly, I don't know specifications for what we're looking for, but I don't think the engine or the bed will come in that price. So I think we will achieve some savings there when the time comes. I'd imagine we both are needed, so I don't want to take them out of the budget, but I do think we'll have some savings there. I just hope that staff gets multiple bids when the time comes to get all that done. But I think we will end up saving some there. If you wanted to try to, in the next couple days, get some, before we got a, month, try to get some firm numbers, you might be able to amend that a little bit to help with the bottom line, but I do think when we're looking at new equipment, it is important to think, how often will this leave the garage and who actually knows how to run it? Like I said, a crack sealer is one of those things, if we can properly plan for crack sealing, you could set up 3 or 4 guys and have one truck pulling a heat lance in front with a compressor, blow them all out and have the guy right behind them. You could do 3 or 4 miles a day. And it's gonna be a lot more efficient. Like I said, you could have a guy toss, you get the biggest one they got, which is probably not what this is, but you could be tossing blocks in that oil jacketed thing all day and it will go all day. So I don't know what you're dealing with. You're dealing with, it starts up, then the wand gets full of tar and you got to heat it up. Then the guy gets lunch and then it's froze up again. It's hard again. And you're trying to heat it up with a torch and then it becomes a whole thing. So that's all I got on this one.
Anything else before I move on to the next one? All right, next up is facilities. We got the leak detection, the Vita route for $40,000.
Leak detection, Peter.
Corey, you mind explaining that real quick?
Well, Vita root is,
Computerized system that, tells us when we need fuel. Fuel low. Detects, our unleaded fuel, our diesel, and it also detects if you have a leak underground. Any questions? All right, and then the next section is non-departmental. The only thing in there right now is IT infrastructure, and that is server replacement, repair, and citywide IT infrastructure stuff.
Stuff like what?
Servers,
It's like, okay.
and the last few sections are always our debt services, and those are pretty much set prices. You've got all of our general obligation bonds, fire trucks, PD, the ladder truck, you've got the community center, all that fun stuff. But if there's any other questions, I'm more than happy to answer them at this point, but that's pretty much what we've got in capital right now. If there are any proposed cuts, you can do that now or you can do it later, but that's up to you guys.
Mhm. Well, I mean, with the IT infrastructure, I'm not proposing a cut, but I am asking, is there an opportunity?
According to IT, no. All of our stuff is aging. If I'm honest, our previous IT director bought a lot of used equipment and penny pinched and everything else, and we're not at a place we can keep doing that. We need to replace and make sure we're up to date and moving forward in the right direction, so. That's no problem.
If the city of was to rent a piece of equipment, should that be in capital or out of the budget?
So my rule of thumb with capital is if it's a reoccurring lease or payment and or over $10,000, I believe it should be in capital. So I personally, if we're gonna rent or lease something versus purchasing, that should go back to the general fund budget and be eliminated from capital.
I make a motion to cut the crack sealer for $60,000 off of the capital budget.
I'll second that.
For discussion?
Up to you guys.
Any
questions?
oh, sorry. Yeah. Does the department head have any comment?
Corey, do you have anything to add to that? She asked if you had anything to say about it. Very much throughout the year, so, and we can lease them or rent them or whatever we need to do to get the job done.
Okay.
Can I ask one comment here? For the effort of time, would it be okay with council if while we cut this, you make a motion to add to Corey's budget for the rental if there's not something already to capture that expense? And I'll fault to Corey if he thinks there's anywhere in his budget he can capture that or not. But that way I can have a clear line of Excel as we're moving through this, they're keeping notes over here of the changes I'm making to the budget.
But in general fund or in capital?
It would go into general. So you're making a motion to cut it out of capital, but then a motion to add X dollars for the rental of a stripe sealer into general under the street department. Like, but that's what amended.
I will remove my initial motion. And I'll propose a new motion, which is to remove the $60,000 from the capital budget for a crack sealer and amend the general fund budget in streets and public works maintenance to reflect $5,000 for the rental of a crack sealer for fiscal year 26-27.
I'll second it.
Here.
So the question I had was basically, how much would it cost us in a fiscal year to rent this machine? Like if you used it twice, 3 times, what do we anticipate using? So that, I don't want you to be underfunded or overfunded, but is 5,000, is 10,000, is it adequate for, what do you think you would use it in a fiscal year? 3 to 4 times a year. And Mike, you seem to have experience. What would it cost us to rent that machine 3 to 4 times a year?
About $500 per day.
So 4 days. Okay, so 5,000 should work. And I guess if you needed more, you could always come back and amend it later. So
Thank you.
And I'm speaking online with Corey, so I apologize for that. But I believe this is work that's gonna take place in the fall. If we needed to use it again in the spring or any time, you can back up with a budget amendment in December if you need additional. Any other questions?
Where's the vote?
Vote please.
Councilman Palmer,
Aye.
Councilman Petro,
Aye.
Councilwoman Know,
Aye.
Councilwoman Phillips,
Aye.
Councilman Franklin, Councilman Whittick, Mayor Shropshire.
Aye. Passes? It passes. Any other business with capital before I move on to our next item?
I just, can I ask a question? For clarity, I just really thought that some of our debt was coming off sooner.
You still got about 5 years.
I see that. I don't know why I thought 27. When I first started, that number just kind of stuck out.
The only one that rolled off recently was the pool. Rolled off 2 years ago, I believe. But anything after this is gonna be 5 years from now.
Thank you.
Will the Public Works Director be here for the next budget meeting, or is this the last opportunity who will be here?
He's gonna be here for the next one as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Speak up. Let me speak up. They can't
We
hear.
talked about that earlier, actually. All right, anything else for capital? Going once. Going twice. Oh, we want ESD. I'm gonna have Mr. Nathan come up here. I'm gonna pass out some sheets to you guys that he printed out, well, I printed out earlier. 1 second, Nathan.
Those ones I sent you earlier today?
Yes, I'm gonna give them all to council.
Wonderful. Cool. See my crazy brain. You can keep those, I got them.
The 1028, these ones.
Sure. They're handouts, but.
Nathan,
Yes, what I do.
whenever your predecessor gave us documents, they always had like flowers and stuff on them.
Yeah.
I don't, no, I'm just saying.
So give me, and I know.
Yeah, you do.
Page 411 in the book, but the handout I passed out is supplementing that page, but the original page is 411.
Oh.
Yep, a lot of the stuff, so all this will obviously end up in the budget book. It wasn't put in, not for any, secretive reason, shall we say. A lot of the lines were new, they just didn't get put in time to put the numbers in.
All we're doing.
And we'd also discussed, originally, instead of, billing
Yes.
EDSD costs to the general fund and doing a transfer, we had discussed, just billing directly to EDST, but the auditors asked us to change that back. It's really neither here nor there, but they'll be in the right place. So everything will be covered. So the first sheet is the personnel sheet. This will be left, basically, this is the 1020 of this sheet right here. This is all the departmental costs, for obviously salaries, benefits, and just the things we buy. There will be, and if I lose you on any of this, because it is a little complicated, but there will be in the budget a transfer of 25% of the EDST revenues back to the general fund. So as part of the statutes for EDST money, 25% of it can be used for administrative costs. You'll see on this sheet, the total for my department, I'm asking for $291,000. That means there'll be an additional $125,000 that can be used for other salaries related to EDST functions, like the city manager, if code enforcement happens to do some work, if finance happens to do some work that's related. So EDST will pay for planning and development department entirely and additional $125,000 or so to help subsidize other positions in the general fund. Any questions about that conceptually? I like silence. Especially from you.
Is it okay? Can I?
Yes, think because.
Okay, no, hit me.
Well, just for clarity, so the salaries for this is for 2 people in the department,
Yes.
170,000.
Yes.
Okay. And
This is
then
me and Luke, obviously.
you and Luke, and then the conferences for 10,000. Um. Um, so just to be honest, I'm going to be upfront. So as I was going through the budget, because we are in a, you know, deficit, I'm looking at this sheet. I'm looking at this sheet. I'm starting with the conferences.
Like all this, please. address
This, okay,
this.
we can leave that alone.
But like this top number, that's something we.
No, I just already answered,
Yeah,
which is okay.
that's fine.
So are you asking not to discuss this?
No, I want you to discuss. it.
Okay, all right.
I'll
So,
just make sure we weren't talking
no.
about individual salaries in open session.
No, sir. So, okay, so with the wearing apparel, again, because we are in a deficit and we have been asked to cut, I am proposing across the board, no conferences for any staff this year. This is just 1 year. That's my, ask to this council. That's not a motion at this time. It's up for discussion. But even the wearing apparel, I mean, I want you all to look nice, but I think for 1 year, we can sacrifice on wearing apparel, conferences, training and education, depending on what that really means, possibly, or can we cut that, cut a little off there, memberships, possibly, subscriptions and publications, is that IT or?
That was, would include, paying for the newspaper. So that's why that number was high, because, the EDST board, wanted to recommend, helping the newspaper out. So that would cover, 2 full pages every, issue.
Every issue for 1 year, so
Yeah, so that's
32,000.
$2,500 times 12, and then we had some additional, publications that we get and subscriptions to stuff.
Okay,
So
and then,
that's so high.
thank you, the office supplies, if we could cut that back. And then the miscellaneous, because really, what is miscellaneous exactly? So again, the wearing apparel, cut that, training and education, exactly what is training and education? The conferences, cut that, memberships, if we could possibly cut the memberships back, maybe not. And the office supplies, take 1,000 off, and miscellaneous, cut that.
I just have to say, I mean, I definitely think we need to look at these things. And last year, as you may recall, we went through and every department head said, well, I need to go to this conference, but I can give up that conference. And it took a lot of time. And I think in the end, we maybe gave up eventually, and some of the people at the end of the agenda probably never had to cut anything. I think it's really drastic to say we're not going to have any conferences or memberships. But I do support cutting a good chunk of them. Wearing apparel, I mean, that's a nice shirt he's got on there,
I shop locally. This is
and
Sport
I see
Principal.
Councilman Franklin has his Ferguson polo shirt, so, I could live without that as well. And I know the EDST board recommended giving some money to the newspaper. And some people are gonna be mad at me for saying this, but I think with the drastic cuts we are asking some of our important departments to make in this budget session, and we haven't even talked about them all yet. But I think it shows very misplaced priorities to say, you can't go to any conferences, and the other cuts that we're going to talk about later on in this session that we've been chattering in the background about that are much more serious than things like conferences. I've got a real problem with, oh, well, we're going to do these drastic cuts, but we're still going to spend $2,500 a month for the newspaper. That's a luxury. That's something that could be converted to digital format, as I've said in the past. And it just doesn't strike me as, when you're cutting to the bone, that shouldn't be in there.
Councilwoman Covington, then Council Franklin.
Did you have some?
I just wanted to point out, as Councilman Noah alluded to it, you're not wrong, like conferences, trainings, but there are some that are required by certifications. There's some that are involved in contracts with police chief, other things, like there's certain things we cannot cut when it comes to conferences, training, education, that kind of stuff. If that's a motion you would like to make, what I can suggest is, like we did in closed session, I can talk to department heads tomorrow, identify those and come back at our next session and tell you, these are the required ones that we have to do because of certifications or because of our contracts or CBAs, that kind of stuff, and present those back to council and tell you where those savings can be. Or as was identified earlier, we can nickel and dime and go back and forth. That's up to you guys. I just wanted to point that out.
I'm happy to get, like, if you need details for some of this stuff.
For sure. And that's what I'll do. I'll go back to department heads and tell them what you really need and give me a reason why.
I gave my turn. Okay, going back to the money for the newspaper. Not that this is a Joseph problem, but we do have, we do have where parks use theirs. Is there any way we can combine those together and maybe it'll save? And I don't want to take away from what he does, but.
So we've had this discussion internally, Joseph and I. The problem we have is getting the content from department heads and getting it timely and in a manner that's acceptable to the Parks Department. They have no problem adding additional pages to their publication. Not gonna change it. But we're gonna have to be more diligent, and that comes back on me to get with department heads and get the information from them to get to Joseph and just apply more pressure. So yes, it is a due. There has been a discussion. Did I speak out of line? Franklin?
So I am a proponent for the allocation of the $25,000 for the 100-year-old newspaper. You know, we have all these different boards and commissions. They're made up of residents. I think EDST has our former mayor, has a former councilwoman, and they voted unanimously to support this newspaper. It's one of the staples, and it's part of our positive history here as a city. And it is a newspaper that hits 8,500 households here in Ferguson and local communities. And a lot of people attend events in the city from that newspaper. I think they also print a total of 10,000 copies and they have drop-off locations. So I think for me, it's important to keep that history alive. I know a lot of people are on social media, but not everybody is on social media. I think we learned that in the last election. So I just think that we should listen to the EDST board. I know we have financial issues this year. We had them last year. And I think this board unanimously voted to allocate $300,000 to FNIP. Excuse me, you're out of order. So, you know, again, this isn't coming from the general fund, and this would do a lot to supplement that newspaper and keep it in existence. And I think our community deserves it. I will say, as far as travel conferences, you know, we have a economic hardship here at the city. I think we should cut all non-essential travel to conferences. You know, some things you have to do for your continuing education, but some conferences they're just, you know, they're just that, you know, and I haven't been able to travel in 2 years with my job because of financial constraints, although I can go to events that are essential for my job and events that we sponsor. So I think if we cut that, it should be across the board with all departments that are, you know, no non-essential travel to conferences and memberships as well. If you need it for your day-to-day, great, keep it there. But that's something that should come from department heads because we don't have the expertise to know which conferences, which memberships are essential for staff. And then lastly, I know Councilwoman Noah said I think we should consider as it relates to wearing apparel and also miscellaneous across our departments to ask our directors to cut 50% of that across the board. Like I don't want to really nitpick and tell you how many shirts, shoes, boots you need, but everybody share the load and you just come up with a percentage and everybody cuts that off their budget and saves a lot of time. So that's, thank you.
Councilman Cannon, Councilman Williams.
So I agree with cutting non-essential travel and conferences across the board for all agencies. However, the newspaper, and I love that newspaper, but it is a tight budget. I don't think we should fund that. It does have a historical value to Ferguson, but so does AOL dial-up. Nobody uses that anymore because it's obsolete.
I'm sorry.
I didn't hear that. I thought, make us nostalgic now. Come on.
If you look at a lot of major newspapers across the country, they are digital platforms now. So it doesn't make sense a local paper is still trying to print daily copies or monthly copies. That's an expense. They can actually go online and probably get advertisement dollars and make a profit instead of seeking money from the city. I think normally when we had the money, we could pay it, but the budget is so dire this year. I mean, if we're asking departments to cut to the bone, but we're giving money to a newspaper, I think that is a luxury.
Dave. As I mentioned earlier, like if there's specific areas, I would love to hear them give it to Jonathan for notes. So I've heard so far, training education, conferences, wearing apparel and miscellaneous. Have I missed anything that I need to be targeting with lists from the department heads that we can do without? Office supplies.
Let's speak to that real quick.
Yeah, office supplies, wearing apparel, training education, conferences, miscellaneous. I will say wearing apparel, you have to remember by department, yes, it's polo shirts in some departments. Other departments, you're looking at gear for service, uniforms, that type of thing. So just be cognizant of that when we're saying wear apparel.
Cut back.
Yes, and that's what I'll go back to the department. What can you really do with that? That's what I will ask. Then I'll bring those lists to you with justification as to, well, police need this wearing apparel because X, Y, and Z. Fire need this because X, Y, and Z. Public Works, X, Y, and Z. Nathan, I don't need 5 polo shirts. I'll get 2.
Come on. Not that my department is any better or worse than another department, right? We do print and mail a lot of stuff. For example, when I put this together, I had $1,500 for postage. I pulled the budget a few hours ago. We've already spent $3,400 in postage this year, and we barely notify. We unnotified planning commission case 185 feet. So we just happen to print and mail, and the signs, we have to get signs made, which seem to disappear after every planning commission case when we put them out. Those are not cheap. So that stuff, it just adds up really fast. So I totally understand the desire to want to be as, frugal as we can, but some of the costs that I have that I just will always have, they're going to be high. I can't really do much about that. But I totally understand what you're saying.
So I would like to see, just being in the trades, there's certain certifications, certain conferences you have to go to for certifications to keep your certs up to date. Would you give us a list of those
Yeah.
because we want to keep you up to
Right.
date in all your certs so you can maintain a good.
Yeah, and keep in mind, the things that Luke and I go to, number one, we're not traveling out of state for stuff. We're trying to do everything in the state of Missouri. But we do try to go to a lot, 1, to learn, 2, to make sure that Ferguson is taken into consideration and at the table. I'll use my example of when I was a city manager next door, right? A lot of groups and places Berkeley was never even showing up to. So by the time I would go to places, suddenly that community is considered and recognized. So even just being in places like we're going next week to the Economic Development Conference, which is at Margaritaville, which wouldn't have been my first choice, but that is a really important place for us to be, to get information and to make those contacts there, right? So that kind of stuff, it really does pay off. Which is not necessarily different from a lot of other places, but it's not like we're just, we're not just going to New York and kicking back, which I know you guys understand. So, but I'll definitely get a better breakdown of that information.
And important memberships. There's
Yeah.
some membership you have to sort of keep your costs down
Yeah.
when you go to these conferences. Am I right on that?
Yeah, like we both have our professional memberships, and then the city is a member of several local and organizations as well. And so those might have been in some other place in the budget, so we'll just double check that. But like we've got Municipal League stuff, we've got North County Inc. I mean, I know there's more that the city is a membership of, the North County Chamber, just on and on, things like that. So we need to stay in those groups for obvious reasons, so we just maintain all those.
Thank you.
Sure.
Councilwoman.
One last question, and Dave, this is for you. Does the city have a machine that prints postage or a postage meter? So how come we pay for postage out of each budget?
So the machine.
So we're paying for the machine.
The machine is off. We have to pay for the actual postage being applied to the mailer. So
Okay.
you still pay for postage regardless. You just put the stamp on it, 75.
Well, if
It's an 8 thing.
in one of the departments' budget, I saw where we're paying a fee for the machine, but you're saying it's ours. No,
It may be an old version, but, and we may lease.
I was gonna say, we probably.
It's probably a lease.
so we're paying for the machine.
Yeah.
We okay, that makes sense. I'm just asking for clarity, so it's okay. Thank
No
you.
matter if it's stamps or inked on there, so pay.
And also the advertising for meeting notices in the paper and place things we have to do is also really expensive.
Yeah, even when we
Those kind of
advertise
Notices.
for the budget here, it has to be advertised in the St. Louis County. We have to pay to put that ad into the county. So those are expensive for involved.
And I was looking at, when I went over the budget, office supplies for all the departments. Can we have a universal room that has office supplies for everybody? You go in, and if you need ink, if you need paper, or whatever it might be, you sign it out and
So,
go with it.
can I speak to that?
Yes.
Well, go ahead, I'm sorry.
We're doing things in waves. So the first one that we're addressing right now, and staff can attest to this, is custodial supplies. Custodial supplies is something that's been driving me nuts for a while. So we're making a move to buy everything involved, decrease costs, have it delivered, that kind of stuff. I would like to do that in office supplies eventually too. We're actually moving to an Amazon account where we can have things delivered and coded that way. So we're not just going to Staples or Walmart, wherever, buying things. We make baby steps here. So we have to budget a amount for office supplies. I can tell you what that amount can be after I talk to department heads, what they think the bare minimum is for that. But we can only do so much at a time. So,
Thank you, Dave.
like, we hear what you're doing, but what you're saying.
No,
But I agree.
I hear you. Okay, sure.
I can't explode the world.
Awesome.
So I got a variety of questions that I'm hoping the city manager or Mr. Lombardo can answer. So we're forecasting a revenue for EDST of $1.7 million, give or take. Is that correct?
Yes.
$706,500 community development line item, is that based on your wishes, needs, desires, as well as the input from the board?
What line is that?
Community development expenditures, 706,500.
I'm not sure. I don't even know what that is. Okay. That could just be a wrong, something based on bad information that was in Questica, because I'm not really familiar with that line or what was put in there at the time. Yeah, that is just incorrect. This page is just not right. Yeah, 411 is just not correct.
Yeah, 'cause I thought the fund balance was significantly higher.
It is. I think that pulled the wrong data.
Okay,
Yeah, this will be totally different.
so I guess I gotta regroup here. So, but you are planning a transfer from EDST to general fund of $350,000, which reflects the 25% that the state constitution law allows for,
So
correct?
that is actually wrong. Also, the other sheet that was sent, that was just handed to you has that number on it. So that was just, it was just wrong. It was this bigger sheet. That was just wrong old data that was in Questica. That will be all replaced. So
$291,230.20. This one?
this sheet has the trans, this is just the department costs. Give me my second sheet, second sheet, okay. The transfer to the general fund, it will be $425,000 for next year. That's 25% of 1.7 million. The 350, I don't know where that number came from. That is not
It was
correct.
based on 1.4.
Okay,
Okay, so where in the budget are there relatively accurate numbers that reflect the other $1.25 million that would be in it? Okay, then I'll wait till get the rest of my questions.
Yep, no, that's taken into consideration. And again, I apologize for the numbers in the book being incorrect. There was just issues getting the new lines created in question. That will all be fixed in as you update the book. So that'll all be in there.
With recent staffing changes, other things, we're trying to focus on general and things that were.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of curious. I'd like to see the suggestions for I understand we're using roughly 25% for the permissible administration costs that's allowed by the state. I get that. We're also going to use a significant portion for STP, correct? Grant
Yeah,
matching.
Yeah, and I'll walk you through all that. So, and, you know,
Okay.
this includes Nathan's, you know, proposed projects and anything else you want to take on or off. We can do kind of whatever we want to do.
Nate, you're speaking in the third person. Nathan's, your list.
Only in that,
Okay,
because it is just Nathan's dream list.
thank you.
But it will not keep me awake at night, either way. Okay, is there any questions about the first sheet? This is all the items that are technically the planning and development department, personnel, just the stuff, materials that we'll use day to day, other than getting the details of the conferences and things like that. Okay. So the second sheet, I'll walk you down. The only column you need to really concern yourself with is the 26-27 request. Because everything is just, the other stuff is just past data to make the formulas in Excel work, but they are correct. I pulled them out of our finance software. So the very top is, in spite of the colors and things, is pretty self-explanatory. So the top is your revenues, 1.7 million and $50 in interest, total 1.7 million and $50. The next two numbers, the 425, that's your 25% that goes to the general fund to cover all the administration. The 623 is your STP match. That covers the two repaving projects that were in the capital budget under Public Works. So that'll cover that.
I'm just gonna find it.
Like they just threw streets. We front and back.
Okay. So it's just two. It would have to be two. Yeah. Okay, that's one.
Okay. Then we jump down to actual expenditures. The 200,000, that is the line that we would put facade improvement grants, disaster recovery grants, things of that nature. So I just put, and all of these big numbers are just placeholders. Even numbers when we get later that I put as cost estimates for projects, they're all just placeholders. Because we have such a big fund balance, in my humble opinion, it's time to start investing some of that money in the community. So in this $200,000, it's a placeholder. It's an amount of money to use for facade grants, things like that, all around the city. What's up?
No, I'm listening.
Okay. 220 is professional services. This is going to pay for the rest of the GIS project, the rest of the zoning project that we're doing right there. Payment for affiliates. This is one where I know we're going to have to catch our breath. This is the FNIP. So we have 100,000 next year. I know that there's a history, and with a 300 this year, we've paid 100. That's why there's 100 next to it, because the column next to it is this current year, which ends in a few weeks. But I put in there 100,000 for FNIP for next year. Should I pause and duck or keep going? Okay, I'll keep going.
Okay, go ahead.
Any questions? Councilman Franklin?
I just want to make sure that if
if this council is okay with allocating an additional $100,000, is that correct? Than what we already? So I think we should support our newspaper as well for their $25,000 request. Or we can just give nobody any money, but I don't think we should be picking and choosing, especially when we got the recommendation from the board that funds this.
Councilman Fowler.
My question would be for the city manager Musgrave. What, should we get to June 30th and the other 200,000 from this fiscal year isn't distributed? How is that handled come July 1st?
A great question. I'm still waiting on a contract, point blank, from legal. I have told them I want the bare bones thing from them. Until I see that, I'm not comfortable moving forward at this point. I would love to issue the other 200 if we had a contract in place, because that's what your wishes were, but without that contract, it's just kind of a tough one for me.
So if we,
Oh, sorry.
if we get to June 30th and that contract has not been resolved, is the 200 no longer applicable and we just go on to the next fiscal year? Or
Budget amendment, because it's a new fiscal year to reappropriate the money moving forward. It's not allocated this current year.
thank you.
Yep.
So, city manager, I have a couple questions. So would we have to, if we're gonna make a budget amendment, then we would have to vote on that. It would come to council, so we would have an opportunity to vote. Okay, as far as this contract, so there's an understanding that the previous city manager went ahead and approved the $100,000 that FNIP has received out of the initial $300,000 that was approved without a contract. So are we privileged to that contract because we're voting for FNIP to receive the funding, or?
I
is
believe all contracts do have to be approved by city council because we're entering into an agreement. So yes, it would come to you first.
It would come to us, okay.
My plan of action would be to first take the FNIP, make sure they agree on it, so I'm not wasting your time. If they agree on it, then I would bring it to you for approval and then we move forward.
Although they were given the 100,000 without a contract. I do agree with Councilman Franklin that if we are going to go ahead and place money in the budget for FNIP to receive $100,000 in the you said we're looking at the 26, 27 request, then we should support the newspaper. I mean, the newspaper, a lot of people do read the newspaper. We're still a community where everyone is not online. Everyone does not have a Facebook page. I deal with a lot of seniors that do not. And this Economic Development Sales Tax Fund was approved by the voters in 2016. So this is their money. This money is to help further our community, and it brings awareness to different programs and events in our community. So let's let's be fair, and let's think about all of the residents. So, Nathan, I just want to say, I really appreciate this. I know you're still working, but so far, I can really appreciate this. Thank you.
Councilman Castle.
I'll tell you what. This council allocated $300,000 to FNIP for this fiscal year. Legal has been batting around this contract for 6 months now, and the initial contract they presented was ridiculous. It literally required that volunteer members of the FNIP board be personally liable for the actions of FNIP. No contract we have with any vendor anywhere says that. And if we place this requirement on any other board or commission of the city, nobody would sign up for it. And we know that. That was a poison pill. And so I'll tell you what. I will withdraw my objection to funding the newspaper subject to this. The monthly allocation for that newspaper will start when and if the full payment of what this council has already allocated to FNIP for this fiscal year will be made. as well as the payment for next fiscal year. Because I'm not gonna be sitting here having this conversation about, oh, well, contract, oh, well, this, that, and the other. You know what? Are we gonna have a contract with the neighborhood news that if they publish an article that the city doesn't like, that they're gonna have to be personally liable to the city? I'll bet we won't. I'll bet we won't. Because that is a unique requirement that was imposed only on FNIP, and it was imposed because there were certain people who wanted to zero out FNIP and send that money elsewhere. So no, when we pay out the money that we already committed to paying out this year from EDST, then we can talk about giving some money to the neighborhood news. Until then, no.
Right.
So I'm unaware of anybody on this council or our city staff that wanted to zero out FNIP and send the money elsewhere. That's a lie. Two, you said this was the worst contract or a bad contract. I wish you would have shared that with council because I haven't seen any contracts, and it appears that you're privy to information that your fellow council members don't have. So in the future, please share information as you receive it and you get it so that we can make informed decisions. Also, FNIP is no longer a part of the city. They're independent. They're a 501c3. I can't speak to the contract because it was never sent to me as a councilman of Ward 2. So I know you're passionate about it, but this isn't for me, it's not tick for tack. You just told us about how tight our budget is and we can't do this, we can't do that. Now you're singing a different tune when it's something you're passionate about. So I'm just saying, be consistent and more importantly, be factual, because no one on this council has ever tried to zero out. No one on this council, especially in the minority vote, has the ability to dictate to city staff or our attorneys. So please, if you're going to speak truths. Don't lie. Appreciate it.
I would like to ask that any funding for FNIP is appropriated separately. So when we vote, it's not included. So I'm not voting. I don't want to not vote for all of these other items because FNIP is included, because what Councilman Cassoff is suggesting just does not make sense. First, we're talking about $400,000 compared to $25,000. And it's not my knowledge that the neighborhood newspaper has ever written anything negative about our city. And we cannot choose the people who serve on FNIP. That was made clear. That's why they changed their bylaws. So FNIP did a lot of things to distance themselves from the city. And there's just rules you have to follow. And again, with this contract, you were privileged to it. The entire council should have been privileged to it, saying that we're voting for FNIP to receive that funding. Thank you.
For clarity, none of the council technically received the contract. It was in negotiation with FNIP, so none of you got it. Just like I said before, if I get a contract, it'll go to FNIP first so they agree to it before I bring it to you. Because for you to approve it and then them not approve it seems like a waste of everyone's time.
I'd like to say something on that. I wasn't on council last budget. I've been to a lot of meetings. Okay. But if everybody's taking cuts, this is a cut I think we need to do. If the fire, police, all the other departments, this is something I think we need to put on hold to look at this issue in January. This is just how I feel, because everybody's taking cuts and every little bit helps. I don't have anything against FNIP. I use it. And I just think this should be part of our cut back if we cut it in half. But I just don't think 100,000 is ready for us right now. Yes, Steve.
I just want to be clear that the EDST dollars are earmarked and they can only be used for certain things. So it's similar to the Parks Fund, EDST, capital improvements, sewer lateral, go bonds. All these funds can only be used for certain things. EDST dollars cannot be used to fund the police department, cannot be used to fund the fire department. Just like parks dollars have to be used within the park system. And so while I understand that we're trying to be fair with cuts, saying that we're gonna cut money out of the EDST budget that's there in the reserves and they have is not comparing apples to apples when we're making cuts to the general fund that is drastically close to being in the red, without reserves. But just for clarity.
Thank you, City Manager. Councilman Palmer.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the 25-26 budget for EDST, for FNIP from 300,000 to 100,000. And then amend this budget 26-27 for FNIP to $300,000 on the condition that a contract is acceptable to the city manager and FNIP is agreed upon it and voted on by the city council. And that $100,000 of that 300,000 is earmarked for first-time home buyer programs within the city of Ferguson.
Councilman Palmer, would you repeat the motion, please?
Make a motion to amend the current year's budget, 2025, 2026 for FNIP from 300,000 to 100,000. And amend the upcoming budget for 2026, 2027 for FNIP from 100,000 to 300,000 on the condition that a contract is agreed upon by FNIP and the city manager and ultimately voted on by the city council. And of that $300,000, $100,000 is earmarked specifically for first-time homebuyer programs within the city of Ferguson.
This discussion, please. Do you have something to say, Council?
Is it?
No, no,
will be allocated
He said
last
current
year.
budget. That's what he's
Right,
talking about.
exactly.
Yeah.
But
It's not
because
in this
we
one.
added that there, it seems like it would.
The 100 would turn to 300
Right.
for next year.
Councilman Franklin.
So I have a question, before you guys vote. Couple of questions, FNIP, have they been before EDST? And obtained their recommendation for these funds for this, upcoming fiscal year?
But the 100,000 was presented to the board, so they knew that that was gonna be moving forward.
Okay, thank you. So 100,000, not 300,000. Okay. And then, my second question is, I'll leave it at that. I'm good.
Councilman Cassoff.
So if I understand it, Councilman Palmer, what we're doing is, since we face a fiscal year deadline for the money that this council already appropriated, we're simply accommodating the fact that our legal team and FNIP and city council aren't going to be able to act by the end of the fiscal year. And so rather than having some ambiguity on how that money can be distributed, we're simply moving money that we already approved as a council this year to the next fiscal year. Is that correct?
That is correct. And also providing the safeguards of a contract that is agreed upon by city administration, the council, and FNIP themselves that they are comfortable with, while also encouraging more homeownership within the city of Ferguson.
Councilwoman Doyle.
So I definitely encourage home ownership. However, I can't support this at this time, not until a contract is presented. And we're still going through that audit with the state. And so I just, at this time, I want to let everyone know that's why I cannot support. So I'm ready to vote when you all.
Councilman Williams.
So $100,000 sounds like a lot of money, but it is not. So the matching grant is $1,500. So if you divide 100,000 by 1,500, that only helps 66.6 residents, 66 people basically. And so I actually found out today
that FNIP has discontinued their tree program. They no longer have it. I don't know if they've gone public with that or not. So I had a tree fall in my yard. I didn't use them. I just paid, but that tree program can help a lot of people. But they don't have the money, so they no longer do the tree program. And to make it clear, Adrian, we are cutting, but you have the general budget and the economic development sales tax. It's two buckets of money. So when we allocate it from this bucket, it's not the general fund. So I know a lot of people don't think FNIP should get the money, and we've all have used it, but I think we should go forward with Mike's motion, because last year it was unanimous that we funded the $300,000 and it was not contingent upon a contract. So stuff has changed since they're technically not a part of the city and the city wants a contract. I'm okay with that going forward, but we should do what we say we're going to do. And you got to realize it's helping a lot of people. And I'll make this quick. The thing about Ferguson that makes it unique are the houses. So I think that is what's that road, West Florissant and Chambers? Like if you come down Chambers, the houses look horrible. But as soon as you make that right on West Florissant and start coming to Ferguson, it's like an oasis. The houses, the yards look a lot better. I think FNIP has something to do with that. So home ownership is not easy and it's expensive. But when your neighbor's property looks good, it increases your housing value. When neighborhoods look good, housing values increase. So Mike advised me yesterday that the Florissant home values are 25% more than ours. Well, we share the same school district, 25% more. And the reason we got on that, one of my properties, the grass is high. It was only high for a week. I got an email saying they're going to cite me if I don't cut the grass in 7 days. And I'm like, Mike, are they messing with me? He was like, no, Ferguson does not play. It's legit. So the housing is what makes Ferguson unique. If you look all around, it's like Jennings, Dalewood. Some of those areas look dilapidated, but when you come into Ferguson, the housing actually looks really nice. That's it. Thank you.
Councilman Franklin. Oh, sorry. Councilwoman Covington.
Thank you. Okay, so I am okay with this because we did vote to give them the 300,000. I feel like it is a safeguard having that we all still got to approve the contract. So it's not set in stone. If they don't like the contract and they never sign the contract, they don't get the money. Also, I am not for letting the paper die. I put it out there that we could team up with Parks and we could still get it out there. I'm not quite sure how often Park do their newspaper, but I'm not for disbanding them. But if we can come together and have Parks and the neighborhood paper together, I don't understand why that is a problem.
Councilman Franklin.
So the recommendation from EDST was to fund the paper 25,000. So the question isn't whether or not the parks can come together. It's, what the parks was already paying can be included. They can join that 25,000 and use that. That's the allocation. That's the recommendation. So it should be pretty cut and dry if we really want to save our paper and keep it going. And then I'll just say, with FNIP, like I said, I use the program probably more than anybody else on this council. It's a great program. But, before we got the letter asking for $150,000 from FNIP in council email, I sent Larry a text and I advised him to go before EDST and get their recommendation. He did not do that for whatever reason. He did not respond. That's fine. I'm also curious to know how many ARPA dollars are left over? Have they been extinguished? Are they still using that money for this last fiscal year of that program? How much money do you have left from the money we already allocated to you? They just got 100,000, I guess, a month ago, 2 months ago. I don't know, but I just think you do your due diligence and see what the need is. Like if they're extinguished, like you said, hey, the tree program is cut off because maybe they're out of money for that line item. That's something this council should know if we're going to fund. So I just would have liked a little bit more due diligence like the newspaper group did. They went before EDST. It wasn't just my idea. They went, advocated, and got a unanimous approval from them. And so, but I mean, like I said, I just would have liked to see the same from FNIP, before we allocate anything. Or like I said, it sounds like they didn't agree on the contract for whatever reason. But I just would like to know what those account balances look like as it relates to money already received. And the elephant in the room for me for a lot of this is FNIP was mentioned as it relates to financial records in this state investigation that's ongoing. We don't know where that's going to lead. Things could get worse based off of the state's findings. That's just the reality where we are. So we're going to allocate funds to a organization that their fund is actually being investigated as far as I know. Now, there may not be any wrongdoings, but shouldn't that be completed before we do anything? But that's just my 2 cents. As Councilwoman Noah said, I'm ready to vote when you all are.
Councilman Castle.
I am the council rep to the EDST board, and I don't know whether a meeting got canceled or if I was out of town or something, but there was a request from FNIP to present to the EDST board. I don't know if it happened and I missed it, or if it hasn't happened yet, but they've definitely been communicating about that. So, but the bottom line deal is they requested $100,000 in new funding from the FNIP, from the EDST fund. The $200,000 that Mr. Palmer is proposing is money that was allocated this year and never paid. And because we have that fiscal year deadline, he's proposing to roll it over to the next year. And I think we've all said all we need to about this. I'm ready to vote.
No other discussion?
I would just say lastly, thank you, Mayor, that to Councilman Williams' point, the tree program won't die because FNIP should have a reserve account. I know in January of 2023, Mr. Robinette presented to the council and stated that FNIP had approximately $700,000 in that reserve account. And that's another question. Where is that money? You're talking about $650,000 of the ARPA funding, $100,000 just this last January. And then there's a reserve account. Where is all the funding? Again, I'm not against FNIP. I'm not against the program. I support home ownership. However, we need transparency, and it's just not here at this time.
Yeah, who was here? Yeah, Councilman Williams one.
Just real quick. So I also have a 501c3. When you have a nonprofit, all the records are public. Your bank accounts, everything is public. So I think Nodrick or someone, they misquoted how much money that FNIP had. That was a mistake. If they had that much money, the tree program would not be dead. So they are transparent and public. And the reason why they had to leave the city, because when management kept switching, their nonprofit didn't get renewed. And some of the bookkeeping wasn't adequate. So they kind of separated somewhat. But I just filled out a FNIP for my sidewalk leading to my house. When that tree fell, it cracked it. And the emails that I receive, it actually says the city of Ferguson on it. It's not an email that's from FNIP. It says the city of Ferguson. So technically they are separate, but they are not. They still use the infrastructure and the email of the city of Ferguson. So, just for clarity, their records are transparent and anybody can look them up because they are a nonprofit 501c3.
Councilman Cass.
One other thing that I need to address, Councilman Franklin stated that, well, so far as he's suggesting that the state auditor is investigating FNIP for improper record keeping. That is what you said, Councilman. To be very clear, the city of Ferguson received a letter from the state auditor last December, I believe it was, requesting a whole bunch of financial records from the city as well as some other things. I believe FNIP was included in that. But it was, they received all of the city's credit card statements, all of the city's bank statements, a whole bunch of things. There's no, and they haven't came back to the city with the result of their investigation yet. If they investigate and they find that there's anything amiss, that will turn into a complete audit by the state auditor, which you've probably seen them before. They publish little books after they do the audit and they do a public presentation, but they would come back and do an audit. We're not even at that stage yet, but they haven't provided the city, to my knowledge, with any feedback, and city manager confirms that. At this point, we have no feedback from the state auditor that anything's right or wrong. They're still looking over things, and there's never at any time been any suggestion that FNIP did anything improper. So I just want to lay that down.
I'd like to say one thing. I'm for a homeowner, first-time home buyers. That's just how I feel about our city. If we want to get people in here, we have to be able to offer something. And personally, I'm okay with the 100,000, long as it's being spent on first-time home buyers. Thank you. Was that, Councilman Palmer, was that first-time home buyers, or was that, how was that?
FNIP currently has a first-time homebuyer program that has been extinguished multiple times. They have dipped into their reserves to fund that initiative. I believe it's $2,500. Could you confirm or deny that for me, Mr. Seastrom? Since you just recently, was it 2,500? 3,500. They've increased it from $2,500 to $3,500 for, at one time, what was just first responders, teachers, and city employees, but that has since been expanded to all first-time home buyers in the city of Ferguson. So currently, if you're a first-time home buyer in Ferguson, you can get $3,500 for a grant to purchase a first-time home for yourself, your family. And there's no limits as to who is eligible other than being a first-time buyer. That's currently how the program is set up now. And you can also stack other grants. So you could take, U.S. Bank's got some really nice generous programs for $8,000 or $10,000, I believe, due to the census tract we're in. I've heard rumors of people receiving up to $20,000 with 3 or 4 different grants for first-time purchases in Ferguson. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. Yes, it does.
Thanks.
Any other questions or conversation? Let's vote. Roll call, please.
Councilman Palmer?
Aye.
Councilman Cassoff?
Aye.
Councilwoman Noel?
No.
Councilwoman Covington?
Aye.
Councilman Franklin? Councilman Williams?
Aye.
Mayor Shropshire?
Yes. Aye.
Pass.
Okay. We'll jump.
Yes, Councilman Palmer.
I do have a couple questions about the Ferguson Neighborhood News. Is there anybody on this council or on staff that'd like to be a subject matter expert on it, as I'm not?
I can try to answer what I might know, but
What's the question? I want to say that. Go ahead.
Does the city of Ferguson appoint the editor of that paper? Do
No,
we have any oversight of that paper?
no,
Do we have a contract with that paper?
no.
There was a rumor that there's 10,000 papers being circulated. Is that correct?
I can't answer that.
Mr. Franklin? Are there approximately 10,000 Ferguson Neighborhood newspapers being circulated every month? How many households are in the city of Ferguson? Why the surplus?
They have, so they also advertise in neighboring communities, so they have like, I don't know if you go into Walgreens, you see, what you used to see in American or different newspapers, so they have designated, spots where you can pick up a paper.
Is there still mail to the city of Delwood?
So they-
How about Pasadena Hills? How about Pasadena Park?
I can only confirm, I know, which is City of Ferguson, and I know residents in Delwood.
Has the editor or anybody with the publication divulged any information that they receive funding from any of the adjacent communities they also mail the paper to? So we mail the paper to communities that are not in Ferguson, and we are subsidizing a paper publication to other cities next to us.
Thinking of those individuals coming into our city and stimulating our sales tax, which drives our city revenue. Guess you could say it.
Do we still mail the paper to every single apartment of the 2,000 within the city of Ferguson? Thank you.
I'd like to say one thing about the newspaper. I used it. Very reasonable. It does reach out to areas that outside our city. I would be for funding 8,000 homes of this and cut out the surrounding suburban communities. Whatever that number might be, if you could come back with a number from them, that would say cut out all the suburbs of us and then go from there. Yes, Dave.
So the price that was proposed to us was for content, so 2 full pages within their newspaper. It didn't have any bearing as far as the delivery radius.
Okay.
So that's what it was based upon.
Okay, thank you.
meeting recaps, just whatever.
Okay, thank you. I'm learning every day out here.
So for clarity, we're not, the city of Ferguson isn't basically subsidizing the entire paper.
I mean, it depends on how you want to slice and dice it, but in effect, we'd be buying 2 pages worth of
Right.
ads and putting whatever we wanted Ferguson related in the paper.
And
That's
that
the
costs
investment.
$25,000 a year,
Well, it's 2,500 a month.
2,500 a month. Okay. So, and what's the total per year? A year?
24,600, that was be the 32.
24,600, so approximately
It'd be
$25,000,
$32,000.
$32,000.
Pages in every paper.
Okay. Well, I would make a motion to appropriate the Ferguson Neighborhood News, the $32,000 for the 26-27 FY.
Yes, it would be part of the budget, so yeah.
She changed the
It'd be a
dollar.
motion to take it out.
She changed it.
No, 32 is what's in there.
32 is what, okay. Well, I will withdraw the motion, no problem, it's in the budget.
All right, let's roll through the capital. This is a little bit more fun. We'll get to I'm gonna do the 3 smaller items because they're fast before I get to the big item. $250,000, that would be earmarked for demolition. I will say I have applied for a grant through the Department of Economic Development for CDBG money for demolition. Obviously, there's no guarantee. I would suggest that we put a placeholder for an amount for demolition, wait and see if we get any grant money so we can spend somebody else's money first, and then see if we don't get it, start to use that to, for any demolition. Do you have a question?
So you said 250,000. Do you have a list
I
of
do not,
properties?
but I know that list exists and will continue to go.
Those
Okay.
are all coming off the dangerous building list.
Exactly. So let me ask you this, city manager, when we demo or the company that demos the property and it has bricks, it's built with bricks, do we keep the bricks and resell those, or does the demo company, can they have the bricks? Or
So-
how does that work?
So the demo company up to this point has taken care of everything. So they dispose of all the material, dumping, all that stuff. Moving forward, the plan is hopefully to do it in-house. And as I've mentioned in previous meetings, we have locations identified with MSD that we can put clean fill. So bricks, concrete, things that don't have rebar are considered clean fill, can be used for bank stabilization throughout town.
The $7,500 and the $100,000 below that are related to some site work and acquisition of properties down in suburban for Plaza 501. So that should finish up all the properties that we would need to fully expand that very far down the street. So, and we've been talking to these property owners. Well, these particular property owners don't really care to talk to us too much, but we do need to have some placeholders for when we get those properties, just to make sure that we can acquire them to finish that project. Any questions with that? Okay, this is the big fun number. This is where I'm going to talk in the third person. So the 2.6 million, what I've done, this is Nathan's dream list. You will not hurt my feelings if you don't like the ideas, if you want to change them. What I really want to try and impress on the council is that this money is really intended to be used as an investment in the community, in our commercial areas, to spur economic development, community development, traffic, to raise morale, to improve the feel, the look, the emotions of an area. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. Some of these may be things that make a lot of sense. Some of these may be things you've never even considered before, and that's okay. Also remember that we're going to be getting $1.7 million every single year. And because our overhead costs are less than 25%, we're going to have over $1 million free and clear every year to spend on these projects. All the projects in Nathan's dream list here will be done in a year, so they won't be recurring costs. So we will have money into this account for this every single year to invest. There's the keyword, invest in our community. So on this list, totaling $2.6 million, I put $350,000 for everyone's favorite whistle stop. I am working with the contractors to refine their bid. Aaron's going to be getting back over there to see how much of the electrical system and the HVAC can actually even be salvaged. We haven't had power over there for a while. So I will have a different number for the council for that project. I have no concept of what it's going to be this second. I'm very confident it's not going to be that cheap, but I am working on getting an updated bid for that. And I'm just going to keep rocking and rolling unless someone is just so offended by these projects.
Can I one thing real quick. I do want to point out that anything over $10,000 has to come to council for approval.
Oh,
So
yeah.
even though you're saying, yes, this is an earmarked amount, it will come back to you for a vote before it's executed.
Oh,
So
yeah.
just put it up.
This amounts would have to go out for RFPs for bids, and these are all placeholder amounts. Whatever they cost will be different than this, but I just put numbers there because we had to have something in the budget for these
And
projects.
these are not all current fiscal years.
These would be.
The funds one put, oh, because
Yes.
you got a balance.
Yes, we got a
So you're
very
sucking-
healthy fund.
So
balance.
you're sucking the whole balance out.
Well, let's spend some money.
I got you.
It's the fun stuff, man.
I.
Okay. And I know you like this next one, $50,000 to restrike Florissant Road. That is one of my personal, most important projects.
Yeah.
I think that would completely transform the streetscape. Yes, ma'am.
I agree. I'm sorry. And you're speaking of South Florissant Road. Are we able, so I love this. However, there are two, what do you call it? Sinkholes on South Florissant Road. So are we going to, is there an, yeah, there's one closer to the UMB Bank. I don't, you know what I'm talking about? And then there's one that was patched over near Spot.
Spot Drive was fixed. It was dug up. It was old train tracks.
The one right there?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so that's been repaired, but there's another one, it's not as great as the one that was near Spot, but you gotta go, it's right there near UMB Bank. So before we restrike, just to ask that would look at that. And is there an opportunity to also stripe the streets that are adjacent to South Florissant Road, like Elkin, Paul, Woodstock?
My personal opinion on that
Church
is
Street.
I would be very intentional, on how much of EDST money you would use in residential areas, because it's intended for commercial, but, you know, parts that are certainly downtown. So, you know, could we go 6 blocks in? No. Could we go a block in? Probably. Yeah.
Just right there.
We could certainly make the whole project make sense, you know? And I would even want to include things like the physical bumps to keep bike lanes separate from traffic. You know, the whole goal would be to calm traffic, keep people safe, really transform the streetscape there. It would be a tremendous project. Okay. Now, some of these projects went to EDST, some did not. Why did the ones did not? Because I realized we had some more money and I said, I got a little bit of time, let's get council, let's see how much I can put in their brains at once. But if there was any real issues, I'm happy to take things back to the board, but I don't think we're gonna have any problems. New downtown signage, $50,000. What that would all encompass, I don't know, but I do agree that the sign down by Pool Valley could be definitely redone. Street signs could be done differently. And if we would do even different signs, any kind of historical or commercial district signs, let's put them up because they'll look great. Repainting of that rail bridge has got to happen. It just has to happen. It looks terrible. It's the gateway into the city. The railway is certainly not going to pay for it for us, but we've got to get that done. I would even suggest that we just prime it and find artists to do something really amazing on the trestle and on the sides of the concrete. It doesn't need to be just one solid color. It could be something really beautiful or outrageous. There's no limit to what we could do there, but I think that's a real opportunity for us for the gateway into Florissant Road.
Councilman
Yeah.
Palmer?
Well, we all know that Norfolk Southern's, or whoever it is, the railroad's probably not going to do anything with that. I seem to think they'll probably have a problem if we do something with it. Would there be? So if we can actually get permission and get them to respond to us, why can't we get them to actually paint their own bridge?
So the last time it happened, we had to provide the paint and I think they provide the labor. That's been several years ago. That's just a rumor I heard, but through the grapevine, that's what I heard.
I definitely would be interested in figuring out how to encourage them a little more to take care of their infrastructure when it comes to that.
The next one, and I always say this, with full disclosure, I drive an EV. There's not one public EV charger in the city of Ferguson. I think in 2026, that's a huge oversight. There's a lot of opportunities to have creative design to put building an EV charging station in one of our city parking lots downtown. I think not only would it be something that could be used by the residents, but it would be a driver of traffic. When I built them in Berkeley, all the visitors that came to use the plugs we put in were from other places. And so we got a lot of new visits just to charge their cars. Building a station has a wide variability of costs depends on how close you are to the transformer. If you need to add a transformer, what speed of chargers you put in, how many, all that. So I put a number that seems too high. Well, I don't know if it's too high, but it seems high because there's a lot of variability. If you want to cover over a station, I think it's public amenity that is really, really missing. And it's a big oversight on our part. We could charge for it. We could not charge for it. We could put parking meters there on. There's a lot of options, but I think it's a really worthwhile investment. And I'll say the same thing I said when I put them in Berkeley. Every community is worth and deserves to have up-to-date technology and showcase that they are forward thinking. So this is just one example where I think we could do something pretty cool.
Go ahead, Councilman Palmer.
Are there still Ameren grants for EV charging stations?
There is not.
What happened to them?
I took all of them in Berkeley, and I'm not even joking. I used up all the money.
Do they anticipate doing more?
No.
Why?
I saw Sam, the Ameren rep at an MML conference, and she loves it too, but I can't tell you why not.
Thank you.
I did talk to our community rep and she was supposed to get me information on grants that are available both for solar and if there's any EV, but I haven't received that information yet, but I'm trying to look at any grant opportunities that Ameren is offering currently.
I think, back, probably 3, 4 years ago, there was a, plan to put one at the Burlington and 270 area in that parking lot right straight across the street from the Burger King. If you want to look at those plans, I think that would be ideal if you're going to put them in. I think that would be an ideal moneymaker.
We had got some plans in for Tesla to put a station over on Halls Ferry, but they have not reached back out in a long, long time. But again, there's no, and even when I did the ones in Berkeley, if you look at the charging map of all of North County area, there's just no infrastructure. The closest one is over on Lindbergh in Florissant at a Commerce Bank, and it's not a good charger, and it's one plug. So there's just nothing up here for that infrastructure. It's just a big oversight, I think.
Yeah, because I know, right off of Brentwood, they have 8 to 10 charging stations.
yeah.
And they're always used, Tesla's always in there charging
Yeah.
up.
So if you,
So-
south of 70, there's tons, because I use them. North of 70, it's hard to find one. It's not right.
How many, charging stations, EV charging stations would this cover?
It's a huge variability because the speed of the charging unit itself changed the cost. So you could spend $50,000 on 2 plugs. You could spend $200,000 on 2 plugs, depending on how fast you want. We would never choose ones that were that fast, but there's just a wide variability of that. That's why I put a large number in it. And again, these are just placeholders. If we actually want to do it, I mean, I could put out 10 RFPs tomorrow to get this stuff moving because the money's in the bank if people like the projects. So the next one is a sound wall on West Florissant, which I'm sure no one has ever thought of before, but could you go to West Florissant on this map, just where, southern part of West Florissant, where Ferguson and Delwood intersect one another. Yep, keep going on. So West Florissant is a bit of a challenging area for us to redevelop projects, mostly because most of it we don't control, especially the parts that you really most immediately think of need some TLC in West Florissant. This is right there. It's right in this area. So uptown where Elite Liquor is, you're fine. So Elite Liquor up north is Delwood, so that's nothing for us. Then if you go south, we have all these residents here with their backyards facing West Florissant Road. So their quality of life is probably not the best with that noise and the traffic and the people walking by and doing who knows what. I would suggest we investigate what the cost would be to put some sort of sound wall up there in their backyards. You could get it. The precast concrete, you could do designs, you could find artists to do murals, but you would improve the quality of their lives dramatically by not having chain link fence and not having it open to the noise and pollution of West Florissant. Now, again, I know that's kind of a, off the wall idea, but if we're thinking about doing something that's new and different, let's do it. Also, this part of West Florissant is not going to get bought up and turned commercial. It's always going to be somebody's backyard there. So what can we do to improve their quality of life? And that's a lot of residents there as well. It's about 4,000 feet total. That's both sides of the street. It's 2,000 feet off and on that you would consider doing something with. Obviously, if you thought that it was worth investigating, I could do some more investigating. But it's just something I thought of that would make a dramatic difference as an entrance to the part of West Florissant that we know we really need to redevelop and improve the quality of life for all those residents. Just an idea.
After pump.
Councilman Paul.
Is the sound wall something that's already been considered by the Great Streets Project?
I am not aware of that. Not necessarily the time frame, but obviously it's going to have that all of us will be totally redone. But I'm not aware that anyone's considered that at all.
Assuming this dream list happened and that specific item happened, you'd probably want to run that by that group that's been planning that project for over a decade now. Because we hate to put a sound wall in and then them tear it down or something, or.
By just getting an easement on the residents' backyard and stay out of St. Louis County right of way. So we wouldn't even necessarily have to deal with them if we got people's permission to get an easement on their property in their backyards. So again, just an idea. One of the things that was brought up a bunch was spot drive repaving.
What-
Yeah, go on.
I had a comment about that. We would have to get residents buy-in for sure. you know, but I don't, with the look, would it look like the sound wall that's on 270 near a Christian?
Any-
Cause that's a bit much of a sound wall, but possibly, I mean, it may not be a bad idea if, again, it's not part of the Great Streets project. Thank you.
Just an idea.
Isn't the Grand Streets project supposed to slow beat traffic calming?
Well, so yes, but on that road, what they're gonna do, it will be traffic calming because they will have some crosswalks and raised things, but you're still gonna have 2 lanes of travel each way. So you're still gonna have a lot of traffic moving down West Florissant, and that makes sense. It's a big arterial road. It's a lot of traffic that's there.
It won't calm it very much then.
You know, probably not.
But it made for the residents.
Are you talking about both sides? Or-
Yes.
So, quick Google search, a little bit of calculation. It's a third of a mile from Elite Liquor down to the last street there. It's a third of a mile, which is 1,760 feet.
We did the same math.
Which is it's $300 a foot for 6 to 8 or 6 foot or 8 foot. I forget which one it was. So you're talking $500,000 per side. There's 24 houses on the west side that back up to West Florissant, and I think it's a little less on the other side, I think. So,
And with your math, you know, you'd have to have distance from each of the intersections for sites, so that kind of stuff. So
right.
how much would be, you know, in one fell swoop? I don't know. And there's just gonna be a lot of variability in height, material design, all that kind of stuff. It's just, I think it's just an interesting opportunity to think about. That's all. So next is spot drive repaving. Apparently that's been an item that's been need to be discussed for a while. Let's get that done. It's right in the middle of downtown.
Please.
So yeah, that's.
Is this spot drive from like Adams to Florissant Road or?
That's the impression I'm under. So, and I know that goes, because the parking lot that we have there, it's still a street through the back. So, and I know it's kind of mismatched over there, but my impression of this project, and again, it was brought to me as something that's been discussed for a while, would be to repave that whole section through the parking lot and everything.
Right. I've often kind of wondered why that road even existed, to be honest with you. You know, it seems like if you're trying to direct traffic to Florissant Road to see the businesses, it seems like you'd probably not have spot drive. I mean, there's a substation there and it abuts the railroad, but I've always wondered why that even existed, to be quite honest. Right. Or make it green space and just a way to get to those parking lots. I don't know. I just always kind of wonder why that existed. So I wasn't sure.
I will say Victorian Plaza, that's what you brought up, is an item that we could certainly use some of this funds too, because it needs some TLC over there. Okay, the next one is a really interesting one that I've talked to you about, and talked to Corey about today. So over on Paul, yes, right. Okay, there's a little bit more. And this is related to the gentleman last night that came and talked about that lot that he wants for free. So we have the Ted Jones Trail right here. You see it? Great Rivers Greenway is coming through with construction that I'm sure we've all heard about. And this is related to the boardwalk that's going to Ferguson. They're going to have to find a new solution for it because MSC won't do it. Okay. They're going to be connecting South Elizabeth and Ferguson to the Ted Jones Trail. You zoom in just a little bit more. I wish it was a little taller. They're going to come down Paul, up St. Louis, and go right on Short. That's how they connect to Ted Jones Trail. A lot the general was talking about last night is at that corner. It's too good of a lot to get away because we put a trailhead there, a little parking, a little bikes in, a little something. It's just too convenient to this greenway at Ted Jones Trail, us to not do something parks related there. However, the Greenway's plan and what they do in areas that are built out, and their design standards for an 8-foot side relief. That's their standards. Well, wouldn't you know, we have our plaza right there.
Mm-hmm.
Also, one of the capital projects next year is to repave Paul Avenue. Why don't we, and I've talked to our parks, our public works, and I have a friend who works for the Greenways, who's their planning director coincidentally. Why don't we be generous, build to their design standards an additional section of the Greenway that's not planned, but connecting the Greenway at St. Louis Vertical Dead End to our Plaza 501. That way, anything that gets here will have access to the Jones Trail directly, or once they get the part of Ferguson Avenue, right, built up with the walkway, how they're connected to the entire rest of the Greenway headed towards downtown. So if we build, like, I think it's maybe 2,000 feet or so of 8-foot wide sidewalk as we're redoing Paul Avenue anyway, we connect one of our parks, our plazas, to the entire trail space. Just something to think about. So we're gonna be tearing it up anyway. Also, all of the power lines are on the opposite side of the street from the current sidewalks. So we wouldn't be touching the power lines. And we would only need a little bit more easement on Paul from those residents because we already have sidewalk there, which is not in great shape anyway. Just something to think about since all that infrastructure is coming through.
Yes, Councilman Palmer.
You're describing the north side of Paul Avenue.
Yes.
I hate being devil's advocate all the time, but what do you do when you get to the bridge?
Bridge where at?
There's a bridge.
Where's the laser? Laser is my, like I had extremely, it's my bad.
Bridge, right by that triangular shaped building
Oh, the bridge, yeah.
with a guardrail that Councilwoman Noah's brought up 300 times.
Sure have.
Broken.
The,
There's a bridge right there past the last house.
Well,
So I'm just curious what you do when you get to.
thought that was
this
very
is
good
this
about
is
the
Nathan's
bridge.
dreams, not Nathan's traffic engineer, but, you know.
I wasn't sure if the Greenway is going to have issue if it scales down for a way.
Their plan. When I say the word planning, is basically we've had this thought, we've written it down, and that's as much as we've done to it. So their plan for the next 100 years is to somehow go all down the creek, and I think just do a straight shot down Suburban to connect. That could be 20 years from now. And so the only suggestion is, since we have our plaza right there that we're gonna be spending $1 million plus on, might as well connect it to the big amenity that's, yeah. 8 million. Well, we got the million right now. You know what I'm saying? Just a thought to connect that to the greenways to get all around the metro area. Just a thought.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I put $500,000 for miscellaneous, oh, I'm sorry, yes. It is a little chilly, but I don't know what that means.
You be up, turn it up.
I'm so amped on caffeine, I think I'd run laps
Bend
right
it
now,
up
man.
here.
I'm ready. Okay,
Just
I
call-
put
that's
$500,000 for miscellaneous property acquisition or renovation. I will say when I was in Berkeley, one of the things I really impressed upon the council, the biggest thing we can do to really impact economic development is have control over properties. Especially on West Florissant, we talked about this a little bit last night. Though a lot of the spots on West Florissant, if we don't get ourselves involved and invest in ourselves, if we wait for people to do stuff, it's just not gonna happen. If we can get control over property, and let's face it, some of these properties are not gonna be that expensive, we can use that as a leverage to further economic development. If we buy property for 50 grand and we can donate it to somebody who's gonna spend $500,000 investing something, that is a really good investment on our part. Plus then we have a say what actually happens in some of these areas. So I would just suggest we have amount of money set aside just for projects. If a property comes for sale or if one is available that we really think would be critical to us, let's have the mechanisms there to get it. Or if we have a project like Victorian Plaza that we know needs to get fixed up, let's just have a pot set aside, so we don't do supplemental appropriation. We can just have that there for things that might be used for. That's all. Next, I put $100,000 for bus stop upgrades on South Florissant, which is desperately needed.
Oh.
An aluminum shelter are $10,000 to $15,000, and we can do better than that. Metro will happily let us help them on this infrastructure. I talked to them personally and separately on other stuff. That would make a huge impact in people's lives.
Councilman Nolan.
And I really appreciate that because first, the bus stop right there across from Circle K, people sit on the trash can lid. So and I know that Metro has a program, I think it's a red bench program. Are you aware of that? But there's I'll try to find the link and I'll send it today, of course. But there's a program where they will donate the bench, but we have to maintain the upkeep. So, but I just really appreciate that because, and then down there near the plaza, that bench is sinking. Oh my, it's sinking into the ground. And then the one near the plaza. So that's three right there. I don't know if the one by the laundromat. Would we be able to have this upgrade also on West Florissant or only on South Florissant, the bus stop?
So we could do wherever we want on the bus routes. I would get back, talking about other places, like on West Florissant, I know since they're gonna spend so much doing that, the standards that may get built to in the future could make one just really difficult, right? But South Florissant, it's there. That'd be really easy and quick to do something with those bus stops. And I know they would just love us doing that work for them. So I think we have the money. Last one is probably, yeah, I'm sorry.
Councilman Palmer.
Our bus stops certainly don't look great on Florissant Road. How well, if well at all, does Metro plan in the future for their routes and so on and so forth?
I don't know, but I can find out. I can't imagine drastic changes, but we can certainly find that out.
I'd just be curious. I know that they've had a lot of issues at ridership on a lot of their routes, and they've been slowly over the decades cutting routes out. So it'd be good to kind of know if they, I would tend to think they probably don't have a long-term plan, but it'd be good to know if they did. I would tend to think Florissant Road's probably one of the last ones, but I don't know anything because I don't have any idea what goes on at Bi-State or Metro. So, but it'd be good to kind of know if they do have some future plans, for any routes within Ferguson, because there was talk years ago about a couple routes getting removed. I know they're going to their VIA program, which is, more tailored, they come and actually pick you up from your house and drive you where you want to go, like an Uber. And it's actually pretty impressive how they do it. It's got an app and everything, and it's free or very cheap. It's VIA, and they just see those little vans. They just go around, they'll pick you up and take you right to where you go. So you don't got to jump off and wait for another bus and go 3 different routes. So I don't know how that's going for them. It might be good to talk to whoever the current CEO is over there, or if they got plans or something. Thanks.
Councilman Franklin.
I have a good contact for the grant program they have for bus stops, so I can send it to you and you can make that contact. And because I think they have monies available, so
I love it.
yeah, there it is.
Hey. And then the last one, we got, I had to throw some public art in there. Let's get a sculpture, let's commission a sculpture, let's get a mural on the side of a building. That kind of stuff makes a huge deal. They've even done studies on how, painting intersections and putting art in the streets can just totally change the feel of areas. And it's real simple to do. So just, simple, let's get some art done in some of these spots.
Councilman Palmer.
This is one I think is actually kind of cool and unique, and actually probably relatively easy to get going. I made it a point about 14 years ago when I started building buildings that I tried to put a piece of art in front of each building I did. And I have 3 to this day. People generally don't notice them too much, but I have 3 pieces of relatively permanent metal art up and down Florissant Road that I put up, and I actually purchased from the artist. And I always hoped that others would kind of follow suit and you could have like a little art walk or something, but it kind of never caught on. That's when I also kind of had an idea for like the business district to try to do live music at multiple locations within the city on the same evenings. That way you could kind of come down, and if you didn't like what you heard at one place, you could walk to the other or just come like them all. But another thing that kind of never caught traction. For a while we had 3 or 4 of us all doing it down there, but then it kind of fizzled out, especially around COVID. Things kind of took a falter, but I definitely think we have some resources in town that could be worth talking to also about, public art and how to strategically achieve that.
I'm biased. My dad used to be an artist. He rented a space next to Little Caesars it was called the North Gallery. He had an art gallery there for years and years in Ferguson, so I would not, I'm totally biased with art and public art, so.
Yeah, Thank you, Mayor. Just one last comment. You know, you talked about the where is it at? Miscellaneous property acquisition and renovation. So we own 830 South Florissant. What is the opportunity there for renovation? Is there, are we
It'll be
just
auctioned
gonna,
off.
it's gonna be auctioned off? Okay.
We've actually got a whole bunch of property connected to that. I actually had a lunch with a commercial broker today, just wanted to know what's going on and.
So that property was identified in capital as additional revenue.
Oh.
It was that property, 3 adjacent properties to that, and there's one more property down the street a little bit that will all be auctioned off, but it'll be separate and then a group separate. And then we've got, Mr. Palmer had mentioned the material blower. We're looking at getting rid of that, figuring out how much we can get for it. And we also have several auctions that'll be, or several vehicles out of the fleet that aren't used any longer, that'll be go to auction too. We earmarked about $350,000 in total revenue there. I think it's a little low, but I didn't want to overestimate because of previous history. So that's where we're
Well,
at.
will you inform us of when the auction will be
Oh, yeah.
and will we get the
Stuff that-
appraisal?
We already had an appraisal.
Can you share that
It's about 200K.
for 830 South Florissant? Okay. Thank you.
Nathan, I have one question about the Victorian Plaza. Is there anything in your scope of future that you might do some kind of renovation on that to?
Well, in the 500,000, you know, that would be, that's why I was like, we just put these blocks that are just placeholders in the budget. We can fill them in with other things later without having to do reappropriations of stuff because we have places to put those things. And I would suggest that Victorian Plaza would be a great project to put that money towards.
Thank you. Any other question? Mr. Palmer?
Would it be appropriate to address Nathan's dream list in whole right now?
You.
I have a couple of questions, more geared towards Nathan, but also mostly probably the city manager. I see we have $250,000 allocated for demolition in the building and grounds. Based on what you guys have done with the DB, kind of streamlining that, figuring out process for ordered demo, permitting, so, you know, getting our own abatement team, so on and so forth. How much demolition do you realistically think you could actually accomplish the next fiscal year?
My goal, truthfully, and Nick and I have discussed this, if we can get grant money, then we will look at doing that way. But to be if we're gonna spend 250K, I'd like to purchase a piece of equipment, a mini excavator, and do it in-house. Then we can absorb the labor of it. And all we have then at that point is the dumping of the materials once it's torn down. Realistically, you're looking at around $500 per load. I'm ballparking 6 to 8 loads. So you're looking at realistically $4,000 in actual cost per structure. So if we acquire a piece of equipment for 150 ballpark, 4K per structure, you can do the math from there, but we could knock down significant houses as much as we can. I would hope we could at least get 25 to 30 done in the off season with our staff, but that's probably being a little bit ambitious.
Are you planning to do these as ordered demos, or are you going to go through the typical channels that we've done in the past?
So we will have to go through the actual channels for the most part. We're exploring other options.
Okay. I'd like to see us, quite honestly, I'd like to see us get extremely aggressive. This has been going on for far too long. We have neglected housing until relatively recently for decades, especially in Ward 3 and parts of Ward 2. I'd like to make sure we allocate enough funds to get all of these houses torn down and get extremely aggressive on dangerous building hearings and really start holding people accountable. If there's anything on Nathan's dream list that could be cut, I'd like to cut it and add additional revenue or funds into the demolition program. Because like I said, I'd like to see us get a lot more aggressive on that, especially if we have the staff and we're going to get the equipment. We kind of get rid of a lot of the scheduling issues we ran into with third parties, not to mention the cost. I mean, we're probably paying 3 or 4 times that when we were paying other people to do it. So I don't know, you know, do you have an idea of how many structures we have that ballpark that need to come down? Is it 50, 60?
I would guess currently it's between 25 and 35. I believe there was 60 homes on our DB list that we just went through. And I would say ballparking it, a quarter to a third showed up and we gave extensions to that kind of stuff. But actual homes that we moved to the demo list, I would guess between 25 and 35.
And have you considered, the bowling alley on this project?
Yes, that one is questionable, but we can discuss that.
The bowling alley just sold.
It did.
I'm aware. It still looks terrible.
They were actually, well, they were there looking at the windows today for a brief period, the new owner.
Someone broke the window the other day, so someone was doing.
Minimal work, but there was stuff taking place today for about an hour.
The vehicle size hole in the roof is probably what they should be looking at first. So is there anything, Nathan, if you were to cut an item off your dream list, what would it be?
Still have money left over in the fund balance, and we're still gonna have tons coming in next year that will have nothing earmarked to it. So if I had to cut one, I'd probably just lob a little bit off each one and keep it all there, since I know that we will have money to do it all. And again, I intentionally put in numbers that I think are probably high. First of all, because I like to look good when it's coming. But I just wanted people to, I wanted there to be adequate space to do projects.
So fiscal year 27-28, the only anticipated expense for EDST as of now is the 25% portion for staff administration. City manager, is there any STP projects planned for 27-28 that would have a grant match portion?
I'd have to check with Corey. I don't want to speak out of line.
Okay. Are there any other would EDST be would it qualify for grant match for 501 Plaza projects?
It would if we went after specific grant opportunities.
Are we going after those specific grant opportunities?
I believe that we talked about it, depending on the phase, going after the Park Beauty grant for certain phases of that project, but the goal right now is to get it into bite-sized chunks so that we can afford to pick and choose based on grants that are available.
So I'd like to amend the EDST budget for miscellaneous property acquisition and renovation to change that number to 250,000 and put that additional 250,000 from that line item into buildings and grounds to make that number $500,000 for demolition of residential structures and commercial structures deemed to be dangerous buildings by the city of Ferguson. I'm going to take half the money from miscellaneous property acquisition and renovation, which is 500,000, and add the 250 to the 28-88 building and grounds. That's my motion.
Is there discussion on this?
Manager, and I've asked you, because last year during the budget, you made a similar motion, and I guess I misunderstood, but I thought we allocated $500,000 from EDST funding towards demoing property. I mean, does anyone else
We
remember that?
We did, but if we don't spend it in this fiscal year, you have to reappropriate money for the following.
No, and that's fine. I'm not against this. I'm just for clarity, I guess I would like to know what properties were demoed for $500,000 last year.
We didn't spend, we only spent 134,000.
We only spent 134.
On the current year.
Okay, just asking for clarity.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We just appropriated dollars towards that. Like the actual bills that came in were like 136 to call it round up.
Right along with Councilman Palmer's ask, I'd like to know, will there be any money for abatement? There's quite a few properties over there that are,
So abatement is out of the general fund. It won't be out of EDST.
it won't be out of ES. Okay.
Correct, but that is part of 32's budget. It's in there.
Okay. Thank you. Councilman Palmer.
Just to be clear, my intention was that I'm just assuming that the forecast for this year is, well, it says 115 here, but he said it's a little bit higher in actuality. I'm just assuming that money's just going to stay in EDST and that I'm reallocating basically. I'm trying to push this across the finish line. I was hopeful it would happen years ago. It didn't happen and didn't have to finish this year, but I'm trying to continue to keep this funded So that if we actually do get it together, where we're getting more efficient, which I think we are leading in, the sound that we're doing this possibly in-house with our own equipment, with our own waste hauler is gonna be a game changer for us because we're not literally waiting on somebody to show up and then say, well, I forgot to disconnect the water line. I'll come back in 6 weeks, you know, or the water line's already tore up. There's a mountain of dirt in the front because no one cares to fill it in nicely, rightfully so. You're tearing the place up. Then the sewer line's not disconnected, or waiting on Spire, or waiting on AT&T. So, you know, it seems like these projects, you know, people get excited at dangerous building hearing. It's deemed dangerous, tear it down. They think it's gonna come down the next week. In reality, it could take years. I mean, but I think we're getting to the point where we could actually, once it's deemed dangerous, they've been given grace and due process. I would hope that staff's goal is to, once it's deemed dangerous, you say tear it down, that we immediately order disconnections from a third party, and then once those are done, we get it on the books. I mean, I don't see why it couldn't go it just that fast, so.
Like truthfully, and you're already speaking to this, I would love to see in the summer months when we're not, our abatement teams are busy, our public works teams are busy. We're ordering the tap destroys, everything else, third party, getting them done, everything that we're gonna demo. And then once the cold months hit, September, October, we're transferring some of our abatement workers over to do those demos. We got 2, 3 guys on a site knocking down a house as quickly as we can, moving, knocking them through.
Right, makes sense. Right now, grass won't stop growing, so they have their hands full, but when it comes winter time, there's less vegetation to
Correct.
combat.
Any other discussion? I request a motion and a second to.
Well,
Whoa,
Hold it, oh.
Are we gonna do parks tonight, or are we waiting for another time? He's here still? Here,
Oh, okay, sorry,
but can we,
Oh,
y'all do,
gotcha.
got
Sorry.
to vote. No, please call.
Councilman Palmer,
Aye.
Councilman Franklin, Councilwoman Covington,
Aye.
Councilwoman Noah, Councilman Cassoff,
Aye.
Councilman Williams, Mayor Shropshire.
Aye.
All right, so I believe that wraps up EDST. Unless anybody want to make any additional motions. All right, now here's my next question for you. I'm gonna have Joseph come up for parks. I know we're getting late in the nights. My question is, this budget is very self-sufficient. It's balanced. There's a lot of things in there. In the interest of time, you want me to have him move quickly, and then we can come back and look at cuts? How do you guys want to do this? No, don't say that.
Quickly.
Yeah, so, yeah, high points, and we can circle back if there's things you want to cut, but I would suggest by department. So he'll start with 72, which is gonna be recreation, go to 73, 74, 75, and then 76 will be last, and we can go from there. You're gonna have to pull out your pages.
312, let's start there.
Oh, I'm great.
I can go all night.
I can be here to midnight.
I live right around the block.
Absolutely not.
What they say, you're retired, you can do whatever you want to do.
I know, but,
You ready to go?
but I just want to make sure that we can done and there's a real plan.
We ready?
Let's wait for the other two.
All right, you guys all on 312? All right, well, I'll start with a quick overview of everything for parks. As you guys know, and those that don't, again, parks is very self-sufficient. We have our own funding sources. It's completely isolated from the general fund, from all those other things. Do not look at the 2025 actuals, obviously because of some of those bank transfers and some stuff that happened previously. That line is wrong. But if you look at the 2026 forecast for this year, going down, again, parks is in the black. We are still good. If you look at the bottom of those red numbers, that are the transfers. That 700K, that is us covering the general fund for all of parks maintenance and more. Right now, we're budgeting around 650K for 1071. So that's covering all of parks maintenance. We reimburse the general fund for from parks sales tax and property tax and all that. I don't have those slides, but for those two, we are 60% sales tax based. 23% fees and charges and only 22% actual, I'm asking a lot there, property tax base. So sales tax is our biggest driver, as you can see from those numbers. The 241 you see there, that's transferring to capital, which actually goes to COPS. That is paying for the community center. We didn't used to pay for that. It wasn't ever planned for Parks to pay for that, but since we paid off the pool, we're helping again the general fund and our capital budget by paying down on the community center, which we still have 7 years to pay. And then the 35,000 transfer out, that is to cover the farmer's market, which again used to be covered by FSBD and other funds. When Parks took that over 3 years ago, we were covering that. The reason it's not in this year is because we went ahead and just made a farmer's market fund in Parks, so we don't have to transfer money and worry about bank transfers and all of that. It now comes out of a new 2076, but as you can see, a farmer's market, under my expenditure there, it is covered. And then for this year, 2027, again, transferring out to covering Parks maintenance and then transferring to cover the community center. As you guys saw with capital, I don't have any capital expenditures. So we took everything out. So no new mowers, no new buildings, no new fun stuff for Parks. We are being bleak a little bit. We are being a little more realistic. The only capital projects I'm looking at is 501 because we got that grant money and then possibly another grant, which I'll be taking to Park Board hopefully next month and then to you guys in July. 1 or 2 projects we might be able to pull out from Park Muni. Other than that, I'm not asking for any capital. Parks not going to have any capital money for next year. If you look at next year's budget, total change in fund balance, I'm looking at 80K in the black, and that's it. Before we get into some of those individual lines and funds, you guys have talked about it a lot tonight. I'll be honest with you. I already tried to cut as much as I can, all of the nickel and diming, all of that kind of stuff, be very, very realistic with Parks. I broke through all of electric bills, water bills, gas bills, everything that we've done. As you guys know, I mentioned last week, administratively, we're only at 5 full-time staff. Dave left us, we were at 8. I've pre-frozen a bunch of positions that we don't plan on hiring for. The biggest issue this year, starting January 1 that we had, was minimum wage went up from $13.50 to $15 an hour. So that's your 15-year-old concession stand workers are now making $15. Last summer I got to pay them $13.50. That's $1.50 per person per hour, all the time that the concession stand is open. So that ate a lot of any extra budget that Parks had. Lifeguards, front desk staff, camp counselors, minimum wage ate a lot of that. So that is where most of my money now is going, is back into personnel from the seasonal part-time. This is why we took that from full-time, so I'm running with less full-time staff now. Other than that, like I mentioned too, I did pre-cut a bunch of things such as conferences, all of that stuff. The only things I did keep in were things that, again, like me and Caitlin have our CPRP. We have to do 10 credit hours of training a year. We go to an annual conference to knock all 10 out in one swoop, that kind of stuff. My wearing apparel, I did cut a lot of the extra fluff, our fancy polos. The wearing apparel you're going to see in my budget, again, that's the lifeguard uniforms. That's my front desk looking good at the community center. That's our farmers market attendants and volunteers, representing our brand, that kind of stuff. That's not for full-time staff to get cool new jackets or anything like that. Most of my wearing apparel is more, I'd say, necessity for my staff to do their job out in the field. Things like that. So at this point, I will walk through happily every line or which budget you guys want to look at. That kind of overview, though, again, Parks is completely self-sufficient. In the next future years, we're going to have to look at some options once we pay off the community center. That's going to help. That'll give me an extra $300K to put back into personnel. But other than that, it's kind of where Parks is at. We're good. I was very realistic with sales tax and revenue numbers, my fees and charges. We are trying to get more people to the pool. We didn't raise fees this year. We're going to have to probably raise fees next year for both community center memberships and pool memberships. But realistically, I pay the guards there no matter what. So we would just want more people at the pool. The more people to buy a membership to go to the pool, spend that admission dollars, the more revenue we make. Expenditures doesn't change. I have to pay so many lifeguards legally to be there. So more people, great for us. So I encourage the community. I want to use the amenities we have and things like that. To answer probably some questions that might be coming, we do again pay for parks maintenance, reimbursing all of that. I do have money budgeted for repairs, including Forest Wood bathrooms and all of that starting July 1. It's not a huge amount, and so if somebody were to go into General Wabash and demolish it this weekend, And we have to include that, any vandalism that we weren't expecting, graffiti at Hudson that needs cleaned up, graffiti at Halpin that needs cleaned up. That all comes out of my generic line. And again, I reimburse Public Works for that, but we can only do that so much. That Forest Wood bathroom is earmarked in there as a repair. As I mentioned last Tuesday, our estimate right now is 19,000. I'll have to go to bid. I'll have to bring that to you guys for approval. I'll try to get that ready to go. So as soon as January 1 budget hits, I can bring it to you guys to get a bid to get that repaired as quick as possible. We looked at all in-house options, other options. Some of the stuff we have to have professional to do though, and things like that. So I will kind of turn it over to you guys and you tell me where we want to go.
Oh, Councilman Palmer.
Is there a plan for these bathrooms to go to, get away from porcelain and get more towards like the stainless steel tamper resistant fixtures?
Yeah, as if you didn't see some of my pictures last week, yes, we've found some new ways to do things, including cinder block, stainless steel. Any new bathrooms that we put in, if they break the porcelain toilet, we're putting in stainless steel. If they break the porcelain sink, we're putting in stainless steel and encasing it in concrete. And that's been a little bit fun. We're putting in sinks again where you push the button and it shuts off automatically, so they can't leave the water running or bathe in there or do anything like that. The only thing I've not found a solution for is the toilet paper racks. Kids love tearing these off the wall and stuffing all the toilet paper down into the toilet and then flooding it. I've not found a solution for that, so one has any great ones. But yes, Public Works has done a great job. Leon over there has come up with some creative ways. Even like the electric that got vandalized, we're now locking that into a locked cage. Again, we're spending a little bit more, but hopefully deterring and stopping.
Yeah, certainly talk to some of your peers at other cities, because I mean, I've been to some bathrooms in, some real nice communities, and they've also have issues with vandalism too, because you go in there and it's like a prison bathroom. I mean, everything is metal. You can't really mess with too much. I mean, you can, but you can't. But they also have those power flush modules where when you hit it, I mean, it'll flush a basketball down the toilet, if you got the water pressure. So, like I said, I don't know about toilet paper holder. I'm sure they got something recessed in a wall maybe, but still a foot kicking it sometimes won't do much. Maybe put a bidet in there or something, get rid of toilet paper.
We can also get rid of water and do drop toilets like state park.
Well, that's my other suggestion is look at these modular concrete setups they use at state parks where it's basically a latrine. It's a cement structure that comes in on a trailer and they set it with a crane.
Yep.
And you poop into a hole, I mean, they're really nice. They got them at Confluence Park. They got a really nice one there. It seemed fine to me, but they do have running water, it's just not as much. So
yeah, we're looking at a few options. Crestwood put in one that's actually uses rainwater to cycle through and stuff like that. And then, has
you definitely want to get away from any porcelain, definitely get away from, that's for sure. So
yeah, we're trying to be as creative as possible. Like I said, it's just effort and time and all of that.
Right.
Yeah,
Thank you.
We want
Councilwoman Miller.
Well, of course, thank you, Joseph, but yes. Okay, the bench that is sinking near the tennis court, is that in the budget to be replaced or repaired?
Yeah, I believe, in 1071 parks maintenance budget under equipage, I put, I believe to $8,000 or $10,000 in new park benches.
Okay.
Something we've not accounted for in a long time. It's typically only when it's memorial bench that someone donates the money. We've not put park benches in.
That's
I have to
definitely-
triple check, but as far as unless Dave took it out, it's still in there. So that is, again, that's $8,000 to $10,000. That is only 8 to 10 benches. Even the memorial benches and the good benches cost us about 1,000 to 1,500, depending on quality. So that's only putting in 10 new benches across 14 parks and facilities. So we'll have to determine
the
which
need.
ones need the most and
Right.
come up with a list and that kind of stuff.
Okay, well, hopefully that one in Forestwood is on the list because it is in need. I mean, I did go there and assess it myself. So hopefully, okay, I did make a suggestion earlier that we, kind of cut back on the workshops, on the conference across the department. So I see here, it's page 320. $9,000 for the conference. Is this the conference where you said you get the credits? You were explaining earlier about the credits that you and Caitlin get.
Yes, yeah, so this is our State Parks and Recreation Conference, for the MPRA, and then I do have the national conference in there, that was either earmarked, there's actually a, national, management and supervisor training that I'd like to send Caitlin to. That one could be cut if that's how council sees fit. The MPRA one, yeah, for me and Caitlin, for sure, we have to get our, 10 CEU credit hours a year. I put in there for 5 staff, my staff has gone every year. It's a team building morale thing. They technically do not all need it. Trenton is currently registered to take a CPRP to get certified. If he passes that before next February, he would need to go to begin to get those CEUs. My other 2 staff are currently not certified though, so would not have to go by any means.
So that can be cut back. Okay, if you would, even with the staff apparel, so page 318, I understand that we have a lot of seasonal staff. So is there an opportunity just to buy the apparel for the seasonal staff and not current staff? Can you all make it through a year without new apparel?
Yeah, the 2072 wearing apparel, that's camp staff, rec leaders that do our events and stuff like that. And then, yeah, polos, anything extra, I buy full-time staff
Okay,
some gear for, and then 2073 covers pool and concessions. Each line has its own wearing apparel.
right, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I saw that. Again, if there's any opportunity to cut back on the apparel, if there's an opportunity, I know Dave he wants to, go ahead, Dave.
Well, I was just gonna mention that the plan was to do this with all department heads across these lines tomorrow in my department head meeting. Yeah, so wearing apparel, training education, conferences, miscellaneous, office supplies is all gonna be addressed, every single department. And then I'll bring a report back to council probably via email before next Tuesday. This is what we're looking at now, so you guys can see those numbers.
I do have a question. I don't think you just mentioned this, Dave. What about the fitness equipment for $4,000? Repair and maintenance. Didn't we just purchase new fitness equipment?
We purchased all new cardio, stretching, free weights and all of that. We did not replace all of the, weight equipment though. So like our leg press, it usually needs a new cable like every 6 months. And that's also preventative maintenance, even with the new equipment. They come, 4 times a year quarterly and oil the machines, make sure the computers are updated software, or the treadmills have updated software and all of that.
One last question with back to the bathroom. So when the restrooms are repaired, will they repair the men's and then open it, or will the men and women restroom have to be repaired before both are open for
We would
usage?
make sure they're both repaired and open at the same time.
Okay.
I would not want to open one without the other because of liability issues and.
Okay, so it could potentially be July, August, probably. Okay, before there's a restroom available in Forest Wood. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the timeline we're looking at. Obviously, I said I'll start now to have everything ready
Yeah.
to go. Depending on the contractor and supplier, see how
Okay.
fast they can work, and then
Okay,
any underlying issues that come up. Hopefully they're on them.
thank you.
I got just an ask. Does any of the staff have any kind of ability to, I've worked in a lot of gyms and I've always had to maintain equipment. Oil the pulleys, clean the rails, the slide rails. Now, do we do preventive maintenance on that to make it the machines, the cables and stuff last a little longer? More tension and less oil brings stretching of the cables. So that's just my ask. Do we have a maintained staff that would do that, oil it and?
Yeah, some stuff we do in-house, some stuff we just contract out just with liability. We want to make sure the professionals are working the cables correctly and that kind of.
Right, not so much.
Lighter stuff like you said.
Yeah, the
oil
lighter
working
stuff,
and things
oil
like
and.
that. We try to do as much in-house as possible.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Any other
Eh,
discussion?
Any other discussion for Joseph? Any other motions for Joseph? All right, so
Appreciate you.
before we kind of, I guess I could stand up. Before we go too far, just to reiterate, my plan is to meet with my department heads tomorrow at 10 a.m. I conversed with them before they left this evening. My goal would be to email you guys realistically, hopefully tomorrow or Friday at the latest. My proposal to you would be, do we go ahead and cancel tomorrow night and move to a Tuesday meeting to finalize this? Okay. So if it's okay with council, I will go ahead and cancel tomorrow's meeting and then we'll post one for a special meeting on Tuesday for our budget session. The goal will be to wrap up all cuts, the remaining general fund budgets, those things, and then we can kind of move through the next steps that we've isolated, which would be final cuts, and then we'll have a budget to propose on June the 9th. We good with that?
Yes, but don't fail to get that out by Friday because this is not gonna be something that if we get it Monday afternoon, we're gonna be.
I will be very clear to my staff that I would need it by noon on Friday so that I can have it to you Friday afternoon and you'll have the whole weekend to look at it and Monday, if that's okay. And if they don't get it to me, then I will make those cuts myself. Is that fair? All right. I give it back to you, Mayor. You're up.
Yes, before we leave, I want to thank City Clerk Lavetta for doing a great job keeping us in line. I appreciate it. And I request a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. The meeting is adjourned.
Council and Mayor, thank you. I know it's a little longer than anticipated, but I feel like we did accomplish.
You said
A lot.
Tuesday.
Oh, that's right. You're not gonna be here. I forgot.
No.
Hey, we can get you a Zoom in.
Yeah, I can,